It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here, of course. We're going to talk about the latest flaw in Microsoft Exchange server. It's kind of a nightmare. That's Exchangegate. Then there's UserVoicegate and Invokegate. That's all coming up. Windows 10 news, Xbox news, and some very good tips. Be portable, says Paul. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 715, recorded Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. A big gulp of Bloodies. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Udacity. Build your tech skills through industry-leading programs created and recognized by top companies worldwide with a nanodegree from Udacity in as little as 12 weeks. Visit udacity.com/twit and use the coupon code TWIT at checkout to get 50% off through May 30th, 2021. Right now, they're having a flash sale. For a limited time, use code TWIT75. And you'll get 75% off through March 22nd, 2021. And by Melissa. Like expired milk, 30% of your customers' data goes bad every year. That's money down the drain. Visit Melissa's developer portal for free access to data quality APIs, demos, and code samples. Freshen up your sour data today with 1,000 records cleaned free at melissa.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. Here are our two Microsofties. On your right, Mary Jo Foley.
Wait, no, what are we? We're not really.
You're not Microsofties because you don't
mascots.
Work. Yeah,
mascots.
Microsoft observers.
Yes.
Up in the observation gallery. Mary Jo Foley, all about Microsoft.com, her ZDNet blog. Paul Thurrott at Thurrott.com, his Thurrott blog. And we did promise something that we are not going to deliver today.
Get used to it, people. We will disappoint you every time.
It's the future.
You got to blame COVID. You've got to blame COVID in some way.
Is it COVID's fault, though?
No.
So we were going to talk to, I was really excited to talk to Ryan Shrout, our longtime host of This Week in Computer Hardware, now at Intel. And he couldn't make it. Something came up?
I'm not actually sure of the cause, but they asked if they could push it back a week.
They did announce a new chip this week, and we thought maybe, because they were going to come up and talk about the Evo graphics stuff, right?
Right.
But they would have known.
Well, Evo is what is Evo?
Platform.
It's like a marketing spec of sorts, right? What did you call it?
It's like an ultrabook, right?
It's like an ultrabook.
Well, you know what it is? It's like both Microsoft and Intel had separate, always connected PC brands. It's sort of like that. Like you have to meet certain criteria. You get the logo, battery life, performance, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll have them explain it. They probably know.
Are they going to be here next week?
Yes, I believe so.
God and who's the new guy? Can't remember his name. The new CEO.
The new CEO.
Gellinger.
Pat Gelsinger willing.
Yeah.
Right.
If the good
Gelsinger this is rare.
Willing and the creeks don't rise, next week we will have Ryan and his buddy Alan. No, who is it? What the hell is that sound? Is there a baby in there with you?
I usually close the door and I forgot.
There's a baby in there with you.
I've got Sriracha here with me. So
Sriracha.
Here we go.
Oh, man, it's the cat episode. Bruce, show us Sriracha.
Yep. I know.
Here he is.
Sorry.
Oh, Sriracha's such a pretty
it's another
cat.
Okay.
Cat. It's the cat show.
There he is. He's hiding.
Oh, he's hiding. Oh, golly.
I forgot to close my doors.
Golly. He doesn't like that camera. He says, I'm getting that camera.
He does not like
I am
cameras
eating that.
at all.
Okay, that's fine.
Hears my voice and assumes I want to pet her.
Yeah. Cats are funny. I don't, honestly, now, Lisa's going to get mad at me because she's a cat lover. And obviously, you two are too.
Is.
But my sense is they have the brains the size of a small walnut. They're not really...
Rocket scientists?
Yeah, we ascribe a lot of human motives to them.
Let's go. Come on.
But I think a lot of it's just reflexive.
Yeah, that's very common.
Yeah. It's not...
They're idiots.
Okay, I didn't want to say that.
No, they are. No, yeah, they are.
They're not.
This is what my cats do now. My cats have these little rituals, right? So I come out of the bedroom in the morning after my wife. So the cats are sitting there both waiting for me so they can get in the room because our bathroom has like a heated floor.
Yeah.
Then they loll around in the floor.
Yeah, heat.
They take a shower.
Yeah.
Now they go in the shower and they lick the doors so they get the water off.
Our cats do that too. Like they don't have bowls of water all over the house. They have to lick the shower floor.
Exactly.
Yours too? What's the deal with that?
I know. He looks outside of the bathtub. I'm like, what's outside of the bathtub?
Nothing. Cats are, so I don't know. I think if you look at a cat and you wonder what's going on, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Is all I can say. All right. Enough about the cats. Paul is now putting his cat outside, which is definitely not going to help. And we are going to start talking about Windows. And actually, holy cow, what a year this has been for Microsoft already. Soloragate, and now whatever this Exchange. Do they have a name for this Exchange problem? They call it.
We're just going to call it Exchangegate.
Humanity. No, it's Hafnium. Hafnium.
Oh yeah, no, they want to give it a name that doesn't have Exchange in the title. But let me tell you something. Problem there.
It's an Exchange server problem.
Yeah.
It is.
40 days, and the worst news came yesterday. Paul, oh boy, we just lost Mary Jo.
We're both having cat-related emergencies.
Cat issues.
Yep.
The worst news was yesterday. Steve Gibson shared this, that Microsoft apparently, and they admit it, knew about it for at least 6 weeks. Well, since early
I thought it was even longer than that,
Yeah.
a couple of months. But yeah, they do this a lot. Unfortunately,
I stood up to defend them, saying maybe the fix, we assume that, they'll fix it like that, but maybe it wasn't that obvious or that easy. And they certainly want to test it before they roll it out.
The fix is kind of complicated by my understanding. I'm not an Exchange administrator, but regardless, I think Microsoft often does this. I can't explain why. It probably has something to do with difficulty / just the aggravation of having to install something like this versus risk. And, a couple of months ago, maybe it didn't seem that serious.
Yeah.
100,000 organizations later, or whatever the number is, maybe it's serious. Maybe it's serious.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's bad.
So
I have a good resource for people, though. If you want to know the latest from them and they keep updating this page, go to techcommunity.microsoft.com and look for the Exchange Team blog. And they have this cheat sheet page there about the Exchange server security updates. And they're literally updating it every day with new guidance, new patches, new resources. It's really...
E-card apologies.
Yeah.
We're sorry. So sorry.
All your questions are there. Everything about what if I have an on-premises Exchange server? Which server should I update first? It's definitely a good resource.
The big takeaway, though, is even if you've done this and patched it, the bad guys, because it was a 0 day, may already be in there. So the patching doesn't eliminate anybody who's already wandering about. So
a lot of security researchers are basically saying if you have an Exchange server, just assume you've been compromised and proceed from there.
Yeah, that's what Brian Krebs said or quoted.
Yep. Yeah, do you know, I don't know, you guys may know this guy, Ryan Narain, Naraine. He's a security expert. He worked at one point for ZDNet and then Kaspersky and all. He's got a tweet pinned that says, in 20 plus years of writing about hackers and tracking advanced threats, I've never seen this volume of in the wild 0 day exploitation as this year.
No, between Soloragate and Hafnium, it hasn't been a good 2021, and we're only in March.
I know. We're in early March. I'm like, and what's going to happen?
Well, at least we're all traveling again. Am I right?
Yeah.
Marcus Hutchins tweeted just minutes ago, I've confirmed there's a public proof of concept floating around for the full RCE exploit chain. It has a couple of bugs, but with some fixes, I was able to get shell on my test box. So it's anybody who wants to can try this out at home.
If you listen, maybe you're out of a job, you have extra time, looking for a challenge,
a hobby.
Do we know how many of the servers have been patched? I mean, this has been such a loud.
You're never going to be able to find that number.
No.
That's the unfortunate reality of on-prem.
Nope.
Yeah.
By the way, every time a cloud service goes down, and I mean every time, Chicken Littles come out of the woodwork. This is why I don't have my data in the cloud, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Is there a corresponding reaction to on-prem?
This is why I'm in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. This is why everything's in the cloud.
Presumably, if you'd let Microsoft do your Exchange serving, you'd
be okay.
You'd be okay, right?
Well, here's the problem. So, all joking aside, the problem with this is I bet a lot of these things are not full on-prem setups. I bet a lot of these are hybrid setups. Yeah. A lot of these companies have that requirement, whether it's legal, regulatory, whatever. And that this is a concern. I mean, this is the architecture that Microsoft has, where you can have part of it in their cloud and have part of it in your own infrastructure. So,
I read, now maybe you guys know better, understand, but I should ask Steve Gibson this. I read that Outlook Web Access this includes that.
I think Outlook Web Access might be one of the vectors for getting in.
So that is
Outlook
part
Web
of
Access
Exchange
is the front
Server.
end. It's the web-based front end of Exchange, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So many companies. I mean, every company I've ever worked for, after Ziff Davis, because they use Lotus. Lotus Notes.
Probably still do.
But and you know what? We never had this problem. But
right.
Probably, maybe we don't know. Maybe we never knew. But subsequent to that, everybody's used Outlook Web Access. That's just like universal. The radio company that I work for does. Oh boy, is this a bummer, man. If you'll forgive me the argot of my youth.
I mean, it's terrible, but we have this VR aquarium thing we can play with. So,
No, back to your point, though, Paul. I have seen people on Twitter saying, I was a little unsure about going to Exchange Online and Microsoft 365, but boy, am I glad I did. Like I've seen more than
I'm glad to hear that because I don't like the knee-jerk reaction thing.
I know.
And it's when Xbox went down one night for 5 hours on a Thursday a couple of weeks ago, and everyone's freaking out, blah blah blah, and it's like, guys, Xbox hasn't been down since when the pandemic started. Like, for this service to have maintained itself during one of the literally the heaviest usage in history, should be applauded. And so, one part of a day of outage is like, I mean, come on. All of the benefits of the cloud are not erased because one service goes down for a little while on one day or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like people are just like they're waiting. They can't wait for this kind of thing so they can be like, see.
I think they want somebody to blame, right? Like if it's an unpopular decision or somebody else said, we're going to the cloud. Yeah, see, that guy said we're going to the cloud, right?
Well, okay, but when your on-prem server gets hacked, who's to blame then? You.
I know, right?
I mean, I don't know.
I wonder if Microsoft patched its
own.
I guess most people use Exchange in the cloud actually are not Microsoft customers. They're doing it usually with a third party, right? Or does I'm not sure.
Both.
Actually, as the world moves to Microsoft 365, I mean, technically,
it's going to be Microsoft.
They're Microsoft customers, right?
So I wonder if Microsoft patched those guys before they announced. I bet you they did.
Well, these are specifically the on-prem Exchange servers, so presumably, I don't know for sure. I hate to say something like this definitively, but I mean, I believe it's literally just the on-prem.
Just the on-prem. Huh. I wonder what you're doing differently if you're hosting for somebody.
Well, I mean, like for Microsoft 365, like they don't ever call this Exchange server right up in the cloud, even though it is, you're getting Exchange services, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
The world will never know.
Well, the world will know eventually. Like Microsoft's pretty good about talking about it after the fact, but we're not going to really find out everything until it's all said and done.
Right. I mean, I think an interesting question is, when does Microsoft disclose this? Like this always brings this up, right? Because, I've seen, I think it was Brian Krebs maybe saying they knew in January about this, right? And then you're like, okay, so why didn't they patch it right away? And that brings into play, they had to test it, this and that. You have to decide on when do you disclose a 0 day.
You don't want to say, oh my God, there's a horrible problem.
And we don't
Don't
have
worry,
a
we're
fix.
testing it.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you within a month.
Yeah. We haven't yet figured out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it would be more irresponsible to do that than to know about it for a month and not have it patched, but actually be working on the fix.
Right.
Right?
I agree.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Well, mistakes are made, but I mean, Microsoft it's not like they're irresponsible. I mean, well, I do agree it's a little, they do have a history of this. Google has called them out on this a couple of times. Like, we told them about a security vulnerability in Windows, and they didn't patch it for like 3 months, so we're just going to disclose it.
Yeah.
Like this happens a lot. And I don't actually agree with what Google does there, but because they do that, you sort of start to understand Microsoft does do this.
Yeah.
And you'd like to think there's a reason. I assume there is.
I like Sriracha's whistle. Whoa,
He's
hello.
right there.
Jeez, well, geez.
Right
Holy
there.
cow.
Do I look like a mouse? It's like,
I actually am
Fall asleep.
enjoying this. I really like it.
Fall asleep.
I'm trying to keep him from like destroying my setup because it's all precarious. I set it up in like 5 seconds.
If you scritch him every once in a while, he'll probably be okay.
Yeah, he keeps biting me. I'm like, all right, dude.
They think it's playing.
It's
Yeah,
because
he's
of
like,
all
"Oh,
the
you wanna
construction.
play?"
It must be alarming to the cat.
Yeah, the noise
It's
is
very alarming.
Yeah, that's
He's
what's
very
going on.
disrupted.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has heightened hearing and whatnot. So.
Yeah.
UserVoicegate. That was Exchangegate. We have 3 gates this morning.
We have 3 gates. It's a good gate. It's a good week for gates.
And we ain't talking
Yeah,
Bill.
This one was very odd, right? So Microsoft uses a third-party platform called UserVoice to get customers to provide feedback and give them ideas about features they'd like to see in Office 365 and Microsoft 365, among other products. So at the start of this week, I saw Tony Redmond, who's an expert on Office 365, say, by the way, like Microsoft's starting to take away UserVoice on some of its sites. It's like just says it's not available anymore. And, Microsoft prides itself on customer feedback, and they're always like, yeah, customers said they wanted this feature, so we built it, right? And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a story here. Like, why are they pulling UserVoice? And it took a day or two for me to get an answer, but they said, we periodically look at this stuff and we're reviewing it, and we are going to replace it with a bunch of other feedback sites that we have, like Microsoft Community and Tech Community, and they pointed to the Windows Feedback Hub as an example, but as
an example of what?
I know. Yeah, as this is how we intend to do this. But okay, a few problems here. Number one, they didn't tell people they were doing this proactively. I don't believe people just started going there and it just was gone, which is not a good look, right? And then they didn't tell us what was going on until we prompted them. Like nobody proactively said, by the way, guys, we're like replacing UserVoice with this or that. And there's just been a huge backlash, I would call it, on Twitter about this. People are saying these forums aren't the same. It's hardwired into the engineering process at Microsoft, how we use UserVoice, and now they're just pulling it, and they don't have a one-to-one replacement. So yeah, I don't know. Like at first I was like, is this a budget thing? Like, did somebody say, hey, why are we paying UserVoice for this when we have the capability ourselves? If it is, it seems kind of short-sighted as a budget thing. And this was funny too. I went to UserVoice, and Microsoft is highlighted as one of their main customer case studies. Like, look at what we do for Microsoft. And I'm like, so I wonder if they knew they were pulling the plug on UserVoice or not, And it's just, the whole thing is just kind of a weird mishandling in my view, unless there's something else going on here.
So we never found out why, though, right?
No. I had one person say they thought it was because of GDPR and telemetry, and I'm like, yeah, but does UserVoice play into that somehow? There was that Dutch complaint around GDPR, and they were investigating Microsoft around the kind of telemetry they were engaged in and data they were collecting on users without users really knowing. But I don't know. Is UserVoice part of that somehow? I don't know, but. Yeah, the only reason they gave is we periodically look at stuff like this and we try to do what's best. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a great answer, but okay.
Well, they always have the feedback hub, so
Yeah.
piece of junk.
Well, I went on the Microsoft 365 roadmap because I was thinking maybe they conveyed something there, because sometimes they don't tell us, but they put things on the roadmap, right? And there is an entry called feedback from your organization is coming to the admin center, and they say they're adding this feature in March, so now. With limited worldwide availability, and it's going to let admins view feedback submitted to Microsoft by users about Microsoft 365 applications. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. It's like you're bringing user voice like visibility to the admin center, but just for Microsoft 365 apps.
That might be a hint at why they're doing it. Maybe there was some integration bit they couldn't do with UserVoice. They may want to make it a Teams app at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
It would just be nice to have more of an explanation about the why and the timetable.
More than none.
Yeah, more than it. We periodically look at what our customers are doing, and I'm like, that's not a good answer, right?
Just send the feedback over to UserVoice, Mary Jo. They'll get right back to you.
Yeah. I use UserVoice sometimes when and you probably do too, like when you're writing an article about something people are mad about, and they'll be like, this feature's been requested for 10 years. Look at the user voice. And you go back and you're like, yep, 10 years ago, somebody submitted a request for this feature, and there's like 55,000 people chiming in like, yeah, I'd like to see this too. And then you see one Microsoft person saying, we're working on it. And that's about it. So you're like, okay, it's
the same guy working on the Exchange patch. Look into it.
It is. The poor guy. He's like doing everything, right? He's fixing Exchange, and he's
tough
also
year for
looking
that
guy. Yeah. Yep. I don't know. I just was I have to admit, I was surprised about this because, again, this is like something I feel like they kind of pride themselves on. Like we looked at customer feedback and we built this feature because people have been asking for it. And look at all the people chiming in here. And now you're just like ripping it out and saying, that's it. No more user voice.
That's bizarre.
It is.
It is strange. Yeah.
It is.
But, I also, so this is a third party that I could see why they might want to use something in-house.
Me too.
Right.
Like save money, and also you've already got it developed, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you have that ready first?
Yeah, that is weird.
Right. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So
I haven't used UserVoice. Is there something special? Yeah, go complain on UserVoice.
Yeah, go to UserVoice and complain about them taking away UserVoice, right?
They're not reading it anymore. They just turned off comments.
Yeah.
Microsoft has turned off comments. Speaking of turning off, I got to find it. I'm sure I have a Harman Kardon Invoke somewhere.
Mine is right in front of me.
Is that the one you slap on the head and it gives you a fact?
Yes.
Yes.
A joke.
You and I bought them.
Yep. No, I have one.
Three of us. All three of us.
Well, by the way, that's part of the problem with this story, right? So if you were to I'm sure Mary Jo's site is like this too. I mean, the percent, the crossover between people who might buy an Invoke speaker because of the Cortana integration and might listen to this podcast and might read our blogs is pretty high, right?
Yeah.
This is the audience.
Yeah.
So when you go into like the comments for these kinds of stories, for at least in my case, it's I guess I'll call it like, you've heard of perception bias. It's like experience bias, People, you would assume that the entire world had bought one of these things, And let me tell you something. Those people are really upset. Like, they're really upset. They're talking class action lawsuits. They don't understand why they couldn't have left the Wi-Fi functionality. They get all these, like, really specific complaints. And I don't mean to be cynical, but, come on. Did you really think this was going to be a long-term investment, really, the Microsoft smart speaker? I mean, how many of these things do we have to go through before we figure it out, But anyway, this thing, as you guys know, you've used it. I mean, it's a great sounding speaker. For whatever that's worth.
So it'll keep. I remember them saying something like, I can keep using it for something somehow.
Yeah, it's a Bluetooth speaker. So there's a firmware update. If you leave it on, you're going to get a firmware update. Actually, today. And it will be available through the end of June, and it will basically turn off. The Cortana integration, of course, there's some of the effects you get, the color and the tone and all that are a little bit different. But basically what it does is it just turns it into a Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah.
Yep. It happened to mine.
So Cortana is
yesterday.
being removed.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny because up until this morning, I could still say Cortana, and it would say, by the way, your speaker is going to have Cortana removed very soon. Da, 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 da. And now today, when you say the word, it doesn't do anything. It's
It just doesn't do anything.
a speaker that you have to manually connect. And, you can use it with Spotify and all your regular apps, but it doesn't recognize vocal commands anymore. And if you touch the top, it doesn't do anything. So,
Right.
yeah. That's
So
that.
it's like a little tombstone now.
Well, it still plays music, which is nice.
It was a good speaker.
When they first came out with this, they were talking about a whole line of speakers like this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
it was going to be the next big thing for them was this idea of Cortana-powered speakers. And they're
Yeah.
on
And
the
what
work
happened?
side.
I can't remember.
Yeah, well, on the work side, we just saw at Ignite, they had the Teams speaker, that was based on that conical multi-microphone thing. So they haven't given up on the idea of having speakers that work with Cortana.
Well,
it's just not going to be
but
a
Cortana
consumer.
has changed, right? The focus
Yeah,
of Cortana is now on productivity.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Look, I mean, we've been complaining about or talking about Cortana and what Microsoft has and more likely hasn't done with this thing for years, but this is what happened. I mean, unfortunately. So we live in a world where the Amazon and Google and Apple actually assistants. I think that's as crowded as the market can bear.
Yep.
I mean, Samsung has a stupid thing no one uses too. So I'm sure that'll be the next collateral damage. Actually, it's not really collateral. It's direct damage, but whatever. I'm sure that will be the next one to go.
Yeah.
Okay, those were our gates. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Windows Weekly.
The gate.
Join us next week for more gates.
We'd like to have a Gates-free episode if we could, but
it's not those.
control
It's
the news.
it's not the end of the world. It's just it's life in the big city.
It's not Bill Gates.
sure.
It's not Bill Gates. Hey, I do want to mention our sponsor for this segment, if you don't mind, the Gates segment, Udacity. Maybe you ought to learn how to program better. There are a lot of tech jobs out there, but how do you qualify? So Udacity is really an interesting story. It was started, I think, almost 10 years ago by Sebastian Thrun, who was a Googler. And I think because he had been at Google, he understood companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, need, and many more, need people with tech skills. That's that's why they often fund education, and there's a dearth of skilled employees out there. So I think the whole point of Udacity was let's get these companies to help us create an online educational program so that people can get the skills they need to get jobs at these great companies. They call them the nano degrees, and Udacity is the world's fastest, most efficient way to master the skills tech companies want with these nano degrees. The nano degree program at Udacity is a unique online educational offering. And actually, by the way, having done a couple of their classes, I can also say they're great. They're educational, but they're also entertaining and fun and challenging. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You're gonna be challenged. But they bridge the gap between, traditional learning and your career goals. You're basically going to learn a suite of employable skills, and that's because they get together with industry leaders and experts who understand what those in-demand skills are in the job market and help you get them. Once you enroll as a student in a specific course, and you really got to go and check out all the courses at udacity.com/twit. They do have some free courses too if you want to just get a toe in and see what it's like. You can view, so you'll view the course, and it's videos, the online course. But, and I think this is really important, they also, as part of the course, have projects. I have taken other online classes where you just watch and watch and watch and watch. Okay, I'm done. But you feel like you learned something, but as soon as you have to sit down at work and do it, you go, hey, maybe I didn't learn it as well as I thought. That's what the projects do. They really consolidate what you've learned and show you how to put it to work. And every project gets reviewed by qualified professionals. Along the way, you get real human help, personalized code reviews if you're doing a coding class. And they have mentors. In fact, they're looking for mentors. If you go to udacity.com/twit, you'll see you can get a job as a mentor. And because Udacity is global, you can get a mentor and mentorship and advice and help any time of the day or night, 24/7. Flexible payment options on the paid courses. You can learn at your own pace and schedule. They know that's really important because a lot of Udacity students have day jobs. They're getting these skills so they can get a better job. They've worked with the best companies in the world: IBM, of course, Microsoft, Google, AWS. They're all over the world. You can take classes in, and again, if you go to the website, you'll see the huge variety: AI, cloud computing, data science, the hot one, autonomous systems right now, if you want to learn how to create self-driving cars or robot vacuums, programming and development. But there's also a kind of softer skills like product management, digital marketing, tech-adjacent roles that Udacity can prepare you for. They'll help you to get ready because this is free. They'll help you build your GitHub. If you're a programmer, your GitHub page is often the first place employers go to see what you do, what you've committed, how many stars you have, things like that. They'll help you prepare that. As much as a resume, it's very important. LinkedIn too, they'll help you do that to show prospective employers. They'll teach you how to network, get noticed, get the job you want. Right now, they're really doing a great job for the Black community. They have the Blacks in Technology Foundation is partnering with them. 1,000 free scholarships to help increase educational and professional opportunities for the Black community. This is fantastic. The first cohort of this year includes 150 scholarships and applications, just opened in March. Both the Blacks in Technology Foundation and Udacity want to increase diversity in tech roles, so they're doing their part to create a pipeline of qualified candidates in desirable fields like programming, for data science, product management, cloud DevOps engineering. So many Udacity students have got jobs at Microsoft and Google and Amazon and so many other companies. Great jobs, great paying jobs, the job, your dream job. But you got to get that education. For a limited time, when you go to udacity.com/twit, whoa, they just upped the offer. Holy cow, I didn't notice this. The offer code TWIT75 now, TWIT75, gives you 75% off through March 22nd. You got less than 2 weeks. Go right now to Udacity, UDACITY. It's Audacity without the A. That's where the name came from. UDACITY.com/twit. And remember that offer code is TWIT75. If you can take advantage of that before March 22nd, 75% off. After that, you're still going to get the original offer of 50% off with the regular coupon code TWIT. So this continues on. The discount will be applied at checkout. But if you've been kind of thinking about this, you've heard me talk about it, you've seen others talk about it. Great, by the way, great reviews everywhere for this. When Sebastian first started, we talked a lot about it on Twig. That's how I got involved. I've been a member since 2012. But boy, 75% off. Use the code TWIT75 through March 22nd, udacity.com/twit. Thank you, Udacity, for your support and for helping people get the jobs they really dream of. Those dream jobs are out there. On we go with the show, moving on to Windows 10. It's another departure.
Remember when we were all creators? Remember those glory days, 2016?
Yeah. Creators
We're not all
update.
creators, people. It turns out very few of us create anything, and a lot of what we create is crap. But
It's so terrible.
So I think we talked about last week, they're getting rid of the 3D objects special folder in File Explorer, right? Which is just cluttering up your quick access view or whatever that is. Or I guess it's just the folder view in this PC. But there was a dev channel release in the Windows Insider program today. Didn't really have too much going on with new features and whatnot, but they did have a little note in there. Hey, by the way, in all Insider builds, we're getting rid of Paint 3D and 3D Viewer, obviously these things are already on your system, so as you upgrade, they're not taking away the apps, but for clean installs in the future and thus on new PCs in the future, these apps will no longer be available as part of the operating system. You can still go get them in the the Microsoft Store if you want them. So I think we can all applaud this little bit of decluttering. Not that these aren't useful for some people. They absolutely are, but it's got to be a tiny percentage of the user base. Got to be.
But do you think there are reasons that they're doing this? I do.
Okay.
Not just to declutter.
No, of course.
Right. So one reason might be because now they're consolidating their AR, VR, MR platform around mesh, and these things don't really have anything to do with mesh, right? As Thinis Swart said to me on Twitter today, he's like, maybe they're doing this to clear the way for Sun Valley, right? And maybe there are new paint apps and new pad.
Well,
apps.
Okay. I mean, if you want to, you could go in this direction. I saw a conversation on Twitter between Mike Evans and Miguel de Casa, and Mike was saying, hey, why doesn't Microsoft just make Visual Studio Code the standard text editor in Windows? Why isn't PowerShell 7 the standard shell? Why isn't Windows Terminal the standard console?
That's a good. Those are all good questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually Miguel's answer was great. It's because the burden of shipping inside the operating system is too big. When you lock the release cadence to the release of the operating system. Right now, I don't think that Paint 3D and 3D Viewer need to be updated. Well, they're just apps. I mean, they can be updated pretty easily, but I don't think they need to be attached to the infrastructure of Windows. Right. Right. So yeah, I mean, maybe there are. I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but maybe there are new text editors and paint programs and stuff coming, maybe. I don't know. But I think attaching something like this, I've always thought this, when they announced this, I was like, this stuff is interesting. It shouldn't be in Windows, But
maybe it's part of feature experience pack, right? This thing that we also get, which are the inbox apps, right?
I'm just looking forward to the experience of not having them. So that's just it.
Yeah, I feel like there's a reason they're doing it. Again, kind of like UserVoice. We may not know right now what the reason is, but there is a reason.
Well, early on they were talking about. In fact, there was remember briefly like 6 months or so, there was a notice in Microsoft Paint saying this thing's going away. You should use Paint 3D instead. Remember?
I know.
And
and I was mad because
I use Paint every single day, and of course Nope. Look, if it's better, I'll use it, but that's fine. Right. I mean, but you look at it, you're like, oh no, this doesn't replace Paint. It does a completely different kind of thing. I'm sure it's very good at what it does. Yeah. But this is not a replacement for Paint.
Right.
I'm going to have to go back to PC Paintbrush now, guys. Come on.
Yeah. But otherwise, there was nothing new in the build, right? Like, it was just fixes, known issues, like nothing else really.
Well, the other little bit that was in there, I mean, again, it's not a new feature, but they were talking about, let me just find it. They have this new, what do they call it? News and interest flyout, right? And they've kind of figured out how they're going to do it. It's going to be 2 columns. It's going to actually pop up when you mouse over the little icon, which I actually think is a mistake, but they're going to introduce an option where you can turn that off. But they also pulled it back into the dev channel. So if you're testing like the beta channel, this feature is actually going to disappear, at least briefly. And that sort of suggests maybe it's a little further out when they're going to be ready to add it to the system. I think that's, and then the math input panel is also being removed. And I assume most people don't even know what that is, but there you go. That's why. So,
well, if you do math, then you know.
Yeah, the new math. But there's actually going to be a feature, an optional feature you can add that will kind of bring back this functionality, which, maybe is the right way to do this.
Yeah. Well,
there you have it. Mm-hmm. It's not like a sad end of the line. It's not like the Invoke going away.
No. No, this is actually good, I think.
This is actually good.
Yeah.
That's funny. Steve Gibson, very happy because he got 150 tweets saying, hey, Edge has vertical tabs now.
Right. Woohoo. Here's what this is the essence of customer feedback when you think about it, because obviously some people have been looking for this for a long time,
Right.
and then it finally happens, and everyone's like, "Oh, you don't even save any space at the top." It's like you get rid of the tab bar,
can't
but
win.
you still have it's in the title bar of the window. The title bar is still there, so you're not saving any space. And it's like, guys, I think the point of this is to better use the horizontal space you have on a really widescreen display. But you know, we can't just be happy with anything. We have to complain about everything.
I know.
Do you use this, Mary Jo? I'm curious because I know you were talking about it.
No, so I tried it just like too briefly. I think if you're going to try vertical tabs, you need to make kind of a commitment to changing your workflow, right? Because if you think about it, like, okay, I'm looking at my system. I have like 30 tabs open, right? So say I turn them into vertical tabs. If I want to reach certain tabs, like say the last one that's to the far right on my horizontal bar, when I make it vertical, it's all the way down to the bottom corner. So I'm like, okay, now I have to go way down here to get that tab, and I can see the names of the tabs better on a bigger monitor, but I also have to like kind of move more to get to the tab. And I forget, one of my readers sent me an email and he said, I have your solution, make tab groups and then go do vertical tabs within tab groups. And then it won't be so long that you have to reach all the way down to the corner. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's like if I wanted to do all the work myself, I guess.
No, you know, I want to try vertical tabs, but I need to like do it at a time when I'm not super under the gun and like just look at it and go, oh, I can't do this right now. You know, I need a time when it's kind of quiet. Like this week would be good. It's kind of quiet. I could try to get used to it and see how it goes.
I think I wish there was a way to size it the way you wanted, because depending on the size of your screen and whatnot, you might want it to be bigger or smaller depending on the display. And really what you get is you can pin it or not pin it. And when you pin it, it is whatever size it is.
Right. Yep.
So I don't know. I like the idea of it, but then I use it. And
I do too. I like the idea of it. And I'm like, you know what? I got to give it more of a chance before I say, nah. Just because it would be so much easier to see the tabs I have. Like when you have 30 tabs open, all you see are like little tiny slivers of tabs, right?
Yeah.
Not that useful.
Yeah,
and then everyone writes to me and says, why do you have 30 tabs open? Like, why don't you make collections?
That's my thought.
Mary Jo, let me ask you a question. Why don't you do everything exactly the way I do it? What's wrong with you?
You know what I've been doing, though, a lot lately? Instead of, I pin tabs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. Yep.
Because there's certain things, certain sites I go to every day. And,
and you want to keep them there.
I want to keep them there.
My email, calendar, and Twitter are pinned.
Yeah. And the only thing that, it's funny because every browser does pinning. The problem I have with some browsers is that you can substitute for the pin. If you go to another page while you're in the pin, it'll
actually load in the pin.
Yeah, it changes the pin. I think Edge does not do that. But
Edge doesn't do it because I've never seen that. So
Firefox does, Chrome does, I think.
Yeah,
Safari does not. Yeah, they shouldn't.
So if you close the browser, will it go back to where it's supposed to go when you come back to the?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think you're actually modifying the pin. Oh, by the way, I have vertical tabs. I never noticed. So they must. Was it a recent update? Because I didn't. Yeah.
The latest version. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Because I like pinning. I guess that counts as keeping a tab open.
Well, but that saves some space, right? Yeah. You know what the thing is. You don't need to see a little bit of the text. It's good.
Yeah, and it's kind of always there. Although the drawback to that is that it's using energy sometimes.
Oh. I don't care about that, but sometimes I'll have multiple windows open, and if you make the mistake of closing the one with the pins first, the next time you bring the browser back, what comes back is the one without the pins.
Oh. Yep. And see, that's not good behavior either. It should be more persistent than that.
Yeah.
When you pin it, you're saying every time I open this browser, that should be pinned.
That is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Let me tell you how Microsoft works, Leo.
But it's obvious. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
No, I feel like pins on Edge work pretty well. Like compared to what you guys are speaking
but you can lose them. You can lose them.
Yeah, you can. But be careful of your pins.
Be careful of your pins.
Watch where you're pinning that thing.
This has nothing to do with that, but like Pinterest, Paul. Just think of Pinterest.
It is. No wonder I can't figure it out. I like using the P-ins that you do have in the top.
See, there you go. No, the only thing I have pinned on mine is Google Messages. That's it.
Yeah. If you use Gmail or Messages, I have pinned the Twit forums, www.twit community, that my twit.social, and then it actually depends on the machine, but some machines I have, like tech meme, the stuff that I'm going to check every single day pinned. And it's a reminder. Actually, one of the reasons I pin it is a reminder to me. Oh yeah, I got to check those.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's like part of my beat check. It's a regular thing.
Do you use an RSS reader too, or no?
I do, but frankly, my habit mostly is there's like 5 news sites. I just go to them. Tech Meme is one.
Check. Interesting.
Nuzzle
See,
is another.
I still rely on RSS.
Reddit.
Me too. Same.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely have an account with Reader, and I have a number of other
I'm going to be buried
RSS
with my
readers.
RSS feed.
Yeah.
That's going to be my requirement.
It's overwhelming for me, and I think that's probably that because I haven't spent so much energy, culling stuff and just focusing the RSS, because I have hundreds of link subscriptions.
Me too.
Yeah, that's the problem with that.
I know.
It's not as focused.
Yes, I do too, but I mean, it's stuff I want. I mean, it's very helpful if you're following, in our case, obviously, like Microsoft Tech. There's all these little tech community, Microsoft 365, whatever it is, Xbox. I mean, it's just, I find it to be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I wake up in the morning and I see like 4,000 unread items, I'm like, yeah.
I think I have.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to see that. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I never have that many. I mean, dozens usually, but sometimes I don't like the sort of tech meming of the internet where, I'll just make something up. Qualcomm announces something, and it's like, Bob over at Ars Technica wrote this article about Qualcomm, and you look at it in tech meme, and it's like, there's a Qualcomm link in there. It's like, why wouldn't the Qualcomm link be the link? Like, the Qualcomm thing is the news. Like, these other people wrote about it, but I don't know. Yeah. I like to go right to the source.
Yeah, same.
Actually, these vertical tabs are confusing the hell out of me.
They are, right?
Yep.
It's like, you know what? Maybe another time I'll check.
Leah, if you want to be really confused, go to the menu, that little ... thing up in the corner, and click on history and see what the screwed up thing that pops up there now.
Oh,
it's like
no.
this terrible. I know, it's awful.
Oh,
I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, so for instance, I checked a bunch of emails. So that's in my history. In fact, it fills the whole window is email one by one.
Yep.
That's not what I wanted.
It's in a terrible floating pane.
Yep.
It has a pin button.
Yep.
But if you pin that thing to the side and then you close it and you launch it again, it just goes back to the pane. It's like, guys, seriously,
we're working on it. We're working on it.
Yeah.
We'll get it one of these days.
It's like we're a little busy with that Exchange thing, but we will get to this.
Yeah.
I like Edge. I do.
I do too. Still a fan.
What happened to Ledge?
I like Ledge.
Why aren't we
Ledge
calling
good.
Legacy Edge Ledge? We've missed an
It's a good
opportunity.
name. There was Credge.
I know. And Rich Woods is calling it Dedge because it's dead.
Dead
Edge is
Edge.
pretty good.
The Dead Edge. But I like Ledge for Legacy Edge. I like
Ledge
that.
is good. Yeah.
Get off the ledge.
Get off the ledge, because
yeah.
yesterday was the last security updates. You're
day.
going to get to the old Edge. That was Patch Tuesday. And after that, no more security updates.
Oh, wow.
So you got to get off old Edge.
Yeah, and then next month, next month on
it is
Patch Tuesday, what we used to call Patch Tuesday, the second Tuesday, they're going to completely replace it. So it will be removed from Windows 10 at that point.
Yep.
As it should be. But Internet Explorer lives on, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Internet Explorer
that
lives
isn't.
on with no end date.
No end date in sight.
Yeah. Well, it's the cockroach of the internet.
You just can't kill it.
I mean, well,
Enterprises
it's.
still have apps depending.
Yeah,
on
that's
it.
why.
This confuses people. Like, why can't they keep Legacy Edge? I mean, but Legacy Edge, to users, Edge is a product. It's upgrade. It's been upgraded. Like, there's a new version. It's not. Microsoft is keeping IE in there for backward compatible reasons.
There's no reason to do that for Ledge.
No.
No.
Nobody's. No. There was nothing special about.
There was nothing special about it
that anyone was relying on. You know.
There was no ActiveX controls or things like that in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No company intranet said you must be using Ledge.
Exactly. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a crazy world that would be. And only do it on a tablet. It has to be in touch mode.
I don't know about you. I find it so annoying when any page says, demands that I use any particular browser. It's like, no. Yeah. This is the internet. It should work everywhere. Stop it. Whatever you're doing.
Also, it's not 1997 anymore, so let's move on from that.
Yeah. Right? There's HTML5. Yeah. There's standards.
Just the whole point of the whole Chromium thing, literally, is to get some kind of a standard so that things render the same, no matter which browser you're using.
Yes, I regularly get that pop-up, and it's mostly from company intranets, frankly.
Yeah.
But... Google is changing. What? There's more?
There's one more little Edge thing. Yeah. So this is cool. This came out of Ignite, and this goes back to that advice about going back and watching Ignite sessions. Even if you weren't watching them live, it's this little tidbits that pop up from time to time. And so this came out in one of those, that Microsoft is moving its various versions of Edge to a single code base. And so if you kind of go back in time, Microsoft really, now that Legacy Edge is gone, has what we'll call three major versions of the Edge browser. Actually, technically there's four, but there's the version on desktop, which works on Mac, Linux, and Windows, of course. And then there's a version that's on iOS and a version that's on Android. And they're not the same thing. They're actually completely different. So what they want to do is move all of them to the desktop, the Chromium-based infrastructure. Obviously, on iOS, they have to use the Safari rendering engine for displaying the pages, but as far as like the actual application, they want it to be the same code, and that way they can roll out features simultaneously where possible across all these platforms. And honestly, covering Microsoft like we do, I think we can all agree is a good thing, because this is one of the weirdisms you see a lot in Microsoft 365. Microsoft has added dark mode to Word on the web, or whatever it is. Or the version on iOS only or something. And invariably, of course, we write about it because we're just communicating what happened. Like, well, what about the version for Android? You get these, everyone who has the other thing is like, well, what about us, And that is stupid, when you think about it. So I think this is this is smart. It's smart. Now that we've moving past Legacy Edge, we can consolidate.
Right. So what does it actually mean to be on the same code base? Like if you're still keeping the underlying rendering engines, right? Like what?
Well, the rendering engine is just about displaying. It's about the functionality in the browser outside of what you're looking at on a web page. So it's all the actual Chrome and how it's built. So if you want to implement, I'll just make something up like a built-in ad blocker or something, which they do have on mobile. Right now, they would have to write three different versions of that: one for desktop, one for iOS, one for Android, and actually there's a fourth one. Like I said, there's also the Xbox, but we'll talk about that one later. Now, what they're saying is now we only have to implement it once for the most part. I mean, there are going to be certain things that, especially on iOS, where the rendering engine there's nothing we can do about that. But as far as the functionality in the browser, not that it will be 100%. You're not going to see every single desktop feature on mobile, but when there is a feature that goes across all three, they'll only have to write it once for the most part, rather than have to write three different versions of it.
So do they keep Gecko in Android?
No, they're going to move to, Chromium in Android.
Yeah. Okay.
Like whatever the Chrome renderer,
So it's basically everything's going to be the same except Apple, right?
Yeah, everything's going to be the same, and then on Apple, the rendering, the actual rendering engine will be Apple's.
Right.
Yeah, they're not allowed to mess with that.
So, did they give a time frame on this or anything? No.
No. No, they did not.
It's an idea. It's a good idea.
Let's see, blah 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 blah. No, they did not.
Just like they're doing with Office. Remember when we saw that presentation where they were saying we're moving to the same code base for all the different flavors of Office?
Well. Oh, and Outlook, they've talked about that explicitly.
Yeah.
You want to, I don't know if it was a year ago, 2 years ago, the Office extension model moved to like a web-based technology, and now that's common across all the different platforms too. So when they, had the ability to bring in some Teams functionality to Outlook, this is something that will work on every version of Outlook, right? The web version, the Windows desktop client, the Mac version, the mobile versions, whatever. This is just kind of smart and obvious evolution, really, when you think about it.
So, just a technical question. What does it mean? They're still going to have to do custom UI for each, right? So
of course.
It's everything
sure.
but they call that Chrome, the buttons and stuff. It's everything but that Chrome. That's confusing.
Well, actually, I think it does include that Chrome. I mean, although you will still want to, obviously you want to do platform-specific UI. I mean, this is the type of thing that might help, like, say, the iPad version of Edge to be basically the desktop version, right? I mean, it's just going to enable that to be easier. In fact, Chrome is doing the same, or Google's doing the same thing with Chrome, if I
typically that's kind of what you want, frankly. Remember Office for a while? There was a Mac and a Windows code base, and they unified them. Then that went separate again, and I think it's now back again.
They did like a pseudocode thing back in the late 90s.
That's the problem, is sometimes it's not as native as you'd want it to be.
Right.
But nowadays, I think with especially the web, modern technology is probably not so
I think
hard.
this stuff just kind of grew up. I mean, because is Edge Mobile a in-house thing? I sort of feel like these things were all just probably done by different groups. They all had their own little agendas, and now it's getting to the point like these mobile platforms are really sophisticated. There's no reason it can't have a lot of the functionality we see on desktop. And I mean, I still have problems on Edge on iOS in particular, just getting like passwords synced over there. Like this is a continuous frustration for me where I have to manually enter passwords, and it's like, this should be here. I don't understand why I'm doing this. But then I type in a password. It doesn't save it. It doesn't, it doesn't remember that I did it. So, I mean, hopefully that will clear up that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's an aspirational thing.
Yes.
to shoot for it.
Yeah.
Now Google and their new Chrome release schedule. We talked about this yesterday on Security Now, I think.
Yeah. So I'm curious your take on this, because I've had some cynical types have said to me it's really an 8-week schedule. But Google is currently on a 6-week development schedule for Chrome and Chromium. So most Chromium-based browsers are also on a 6-week schedule, including Microsoft Edge. And they announced this past week that they're moving to a 4-week schedule. And this introduces some complexities because Chrome OS is also based on Chromium, and a 4-week OS update schedule is really aggressive. And they're going to allow people to opt out of that, and I think go 6 or 8 weeks, if I remember correctly. And they're introducing an 8-week version of the schedule as well. And I think that's for businesses that don't want to upgrade as frequently, if I'm following this correctly. But to me, the big question is, okay, so we literally just retired a browser that was only updated twice a year, right? Which was a huge problem. We finally got on board. We now have, for over a year, Microsoft has been shipping its Chromium version of Edge on a 6-week schedule across various channels. Now Google's going to a 4-week schedule. So is Edge going to go to a 4-week schedule?
They haven't said, right?
No, they've not said. I've not asked.
I would guess they are, right?
Well, yeah, because the alternative would be to move to an 8-week schedule. Right?
Yeah, to skip every other one.
Yeah. But honestly, I feel like Edge is updated so often as it is, they could probably just do this, and maybe each one is a little smaller, which would be fine. And it's not an onerous thing to upgrade a browser for the most part, right? I mean, you have multiple windows open, whatever, you reset the thing, it comes back, all the windows come back. It's, they're pretty good about it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Google could move it without moving Chromium's thing, because Chromium could still be whatever every 6 weeks, and Google obviously wouldn't be able to update the engine every 4 weeks, but they have plenty of other code they could update, and code probably that no one else is using, because Microsoft's using the Chromium base.
Yeah.
So I don't think that affects anybody else.
Well, this is also the question: are they doing this because of the success of other Chromium-based browsers? Right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Is this an opportunity for them to kind of differentiate a little bit?
No, you know why they're doing it, Paul? Because they have to. Because there's so many security issues. They have to.
Okay.
Yeah,
they just have to.
Yep.
I think they have no choice.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the world, Chrome is the computing world. I mean, they do everything in Chrome.
Yeah. I said, yeah. I don't know if they said why they're doing it, but
remember, wasn't that long ago, 10, 11 months ago, all of a sudden Google started skipping versions because of COVID, right? Everyone was heading home.
Oh, yeah.
Everything slowed down.
Yeah,
and,
the world was slowing down. That didn't last too long.
Yeah, now they're like, well, we're not just going back to the normal schedule. We're to rev this thing up.
Isn't that funny?
So things have changed.
Yeah. And
everybody figured out how to work from home.
I think so. I mean, I think that's one of the interesting lessons of this whole thing is, and I think Google's one of the companies that's doing this.
Right.
Microsoft's doing it too, right? They're going to say, some of you can come back, but you don't all have to come back. Has Microsoft announced what they're going to do after COVID?
Yeah, they did say something, didn't they?
I feel like they said that. Salesforce said it. Twitter.
Yeah.
No, it's. Yeah, Mary Jo will probably remember.
I'm trying to remember because they switched it up.
Yeah.
They said people would be able to talk to their manager.
Oh, their manager.
Yeah, it's manager based.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's obviously depending on the team, depending on what you're working on, it's going to work better or not.
Right. But it sounded like, for the most part, if you don't have to be here, you don't need to come in just to say you're in the office.
I have so many friends who are all of a sudden, or friends of my wife as well. These are people that have gone into offices in Boston in many cases or in other cities every day. And now they're like, yeah, you don't ever have to come in again. Like it's astonishing to me how many people I know who this has just happened to. Someone was just this morning was on Skype saying, oh yeah, I've been working from home for 1 year as of like this week. And I thought about it. I said, yeah, I've been working from home for 27 years. Welcome to the club. It's been a long time.
What they said, I'm looking it up here. They said the official reopen date is July, but you still can, talk to your manager, and if you don't need to be there or you can be there part-time, you can work it out with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But July is
a lot of people are going to want to go in sometimes, right? I mean,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're going to
even I want to go someplace sometimes.
They're going to have to beat them off. No, you can't come in. We don't have an office space for you anymore.
Well, especially people with kids at home or smaller.
We rented your room, so you can't come home. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain people you're like, they can't wait to go back. Right?
It's going to be like a petri dish, and they're like all the plants have died. You've got like all your stuff from March 2020 is hanging on the walls.
No, seriously, I think we're the outliers because we work alone at home. But I think
not anymore. We're not.
No, but I think most people who don't do what we do on a per choice are going to die to get back in the office. I know most of our employees
I think a lot of people definitely
don't
want to come back.
And frankly, I don't want them to come back. Stay home.
I kind of like the quiet. I got to be honest.
No. They miss the social elements of it, and there are certain valuable things you can get up, go down the hall, and say, "Hey, what's going on with this?"
Yeah.
Things happen when you're face to face that just don't happen.
Right.
Yeah, Slack doesn't cut it for everything. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I do think that a lot of companies are going, why are we renting all this office space? Let people stay home.
Yeah, especially in cities. Like New York is an extreme example, but in any city, I mean, that's expensive real estate.
Yeah.
And now it's not being used, and years have gone by. And for a lot, again, it's not every industry, I get that. But for a lot of places, it's like, wow, we had a great year, got a lot of work done, and we're paying for empty office space for some reason. What are we doing?
It worked.
Yeah.
But I suspect employees will not be as happy about it in some cases.
Yeah.
There's people like us.
I know.
Right.
We chose this life years ago.
Yeah.
Did we, or did it choose us?
I know so many people who are like, the minute the office is open, I'm in there.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, even I'm looking forward to going to New York to have a meeting with my small team or whatever.
Yeah.
Just to.
There's going to be some changes. I think Microsoft's Ignite has been enough of a success remotely that I think Microsoft won't be alone in this. They might consider doing this way from now on, right?
So we should actually mention we should mention that there was a leak today from the Walking Cat where he found an internal Microsoft presentation that had all these dates for shows this year, and it looked like everything was virtual, right?
Yeah.
Even Ignite, it showed Ignite in October, and it was
and then
like
again
a 2-day
next
event.
March, right? Did you see that?
I know.
It was like
a
not
year
just
from now.
Like 2.
Oh,
yeah.
So I think. So I wouldn't read too much into that presentation yet. And he agreed. He said these are placeholder dates, and I think they are too.
Yeah.
But, it begs the question, are they going to have any real events this year? We know up through July, everything is virtual. We know that already.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that you could picture Microsoft not having an in-person event for the entire year, right?
I could. Yeah.
I could also picture them doing a thing where they say, look, we're going to require vaccination, forms or something like that before you can come in, and that the future, and that could be the future this year, but certainly by next year is going to be this hybrid model we keep talking about where, they've learned a lot of things about these past, the builds and Ignites and the other shows they do that have been virtual, some good, some bad, and they can incorporate elements to that because there will be people in our industry who just don't want to travel at all, or maybe to some of them, and will want to do that virtual component. And I feel like they've kind of built it out where they can do it pretty well,
Yep.
So I'm going to want to go to some of this.
No, they're actually going to other companies and saying, and customers, hey, look at us running these big virtual events. We could do it for you too, right?
Yeah.
I know. I have mixed feelings about real events. I want them, but I'm also a little scared of them too.
Really?
Even I assume I'll be fully vaccinated by the time of like a fall event, but still, I don't know. Like part of me is like, yeah, but not everybody who goes will be.
You and I have spent a significant portion of our adult lives shoulder to shoulder in crowded bars, New York and across the planet.
Yeah, I know.
And there's got to be a part of you that wants to do this again, of course.
Yeah,
but then
sure.
there's also that part where you're like, man, all those people.
I know.
Like,
and in New York, it's scary because when you go out on the street here, there's like more and more. I was out yesterday at rush hour. There are a lot of people on the street, and I'm like, you know what? People are coming back into the city, and it's crowded in places again.
I think we're going to get ahead of it, and as we get vaccinated, we're going to become more comfortable with it. And someday we're just going to marvel that we're sitting on a crowded plane with a bunch of other people, or. Or whatever,
Yeah, I know.
We were talking.
When you think about, I just think about last year, it is exactly 1 year since everything closed down in New York, right?
Yeah.
And a year ago, just one day before everything shut down, I was in, of course I was, a craft beer bar with a million other people sitting side by side, squished in. And you think, you know what? The virus was already out there. It's kind of lucky I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I went on a restaurant rampage the last week. Everything was open, not because I thought it was closing down, but because Richard was visiting, and we went to every hotspot there was in the in the valley.
All of the lower Macungie Valley was rocking that night.
The whiskey was being poured.
Yesterday on Mac Break Weekly, Alex Lindsay, who, of course, we should mention as a living does virtual events, was advocating not only for virtual events, but for canned virtual events. He says there's no reason, and I think there's a certain amount of truth in this, because Steve Jobs was such a master of the live presentation, Apple really bought into that, right? And other companies then saw Apple doing so well with it, they bought into it. So really, I think you can trace it back to the early days of Steve's presentation.
By the way, that is more of a genius idea than maybe is immediately obvious. And I'm not just basing this on my own experience because I've done some canned things like that, which I so much prefer. But if you think about what Microsoft did with Build and Ignite last year, and I assume they did it with Ignite this year, although I didn't really, it wasn't really in my face enough to be sure, but they actually did each session
canned
3 times live.
Yeah.
At different times so that people could be live in their own time zones and be there to ask questions of the speaker. It gives them part of the benefit of showing up live, right?
Yeah.
That doing a canned presentation, but having the person be there for the Q&A,
that's a good idea.
Would solve a lot of these problems.
That's what they were advocating for on Mac Break Weekly.
Yeah, Ignite was split into 2 shows specifically because it would have been too difficult to do 5 days of that in a row.
Yeah.
But some events don't lend themselves to it as easily. Like say you're rolling out new Surface devices instead of talking about like, Azure, some service. I feel like it's a very different experience when you're not there and they're showing you something like the Surface.
Oh, no,
Here's
he's talking specifically about virtual events.
Here's what they were suggesting, though. Panos Panay does that pre-recorded Surface Duo presentation, but you're all they're watching it. Afterwards, there's a demo room, there's briefings. You get the hands-on stuff that you can only get one-on-one. But why do we insist on Panos coming up on a stage and fumbling through a presentation?
And by the way, Apple proves the point. What have Apple's presentations over the past year been? They've been really slick, professionally made, pre-canned events. Those things aren't live.
That's what Alex is advocating for. He says you get more content in, you get the presentation better. Of course, we still need the briefings. And
you get it right.
You get it right. You get much more control of it. We did this for years because Steve was a master of it, but he's gone. And honestly, nobody is as good as Steve.
Nobody has that skill. Come on.
And you see so many people trying to be that good.
I know, it's tough.
And it's hard. And so I think people were copying copycats, but maybe it's time to rethink it.
Look, Microsoft has been doing live events for as long as it's been at Microsoft, and they're usually pretty terrible. Obviously they've gotten really, more slick over the years and better and all that kind of stuff. But no, I agree with this 100%. I mean, the only thing that's going to screw that up is if it's a hybrid event and you do have a live audience there, do you make them sit in a room and watch a video where they normally would have gotten the person in front of them? I guess it's going to depend, but for fully virtual events, I couldn't agree with that more, because having the opportunity to have done a couple of those things over in my life where those things were canned ahead of time and you could correct mistakes and make sure the recording was perfect, or better at least, is huge. I agree with that completely.
Lots of stuff coming up, but first, a word from Melissa. Melissa they are the address experts. If you've ever forgotten to check the date on a carton of milk, in your fridge lurks an evil entity. Out-of-date milk. You don't want to put that in your Cheerios. But did you know that just like milk, your customer data ages out? In fact, on average, I think Melissa knows this because they deal with it, 30% of your customer data goes bad every year. That means you're sending things to the wrong address or wrong email, or you're calling a number that no longer exists. This is just the way of the world. It's kind of entropy, the entropy of address data. That's what Melissa takes care of, and they've been doing it for 35 years. They've been helping businesses maintain fresh data. 10,000 businesses trust Melissa, the address experts. You can validate every bit of your customer data, addresses, emails, phone numbers, and names in over 240 countries and territories. You can also add additional information from public records, customer demographic information. It'll help you serve them better, things like property data, marital status, social media handles. You can really make that, that customer list, that address list is gold, but you should treat it like gold. You should treat it, take care of it. But that's what Melissa does. And they do it in any way you want. You can have it on-prem, but you can have it in the cloud. You can have it as a SaaS. They have an API. In fact, a lot of companies build Melissa's APIs into their customer service software so that when a customer rep is entering in an address, and this is where errors happen. You can actually have the error happen at the point of entry. You want to fix that right away. Same thing. If you've probably used Melissa at home, if you start entering an address and it gets populated, that's almost certainly Melissa doing that. And it also has a great data dedupe service, which means you don't have duplicate records. That's a hot button again for me because I bought a piece of furniture. Actually, the old studio was all restoration hardware furniture. It was great. But I don't know why, I started getting 3 or 4, and their catalogs are thick. They're phone books, glossy, beautiful. But got 3 or 4 to the same address for years. I finally called them up and said, stop it. You're wasting your money, and you're irritating me. That's because they didn't have Melissa. Deduping information eliminates clutter, but also increases the accuracy of the database, reduces your postage costs, your handling, and it reduces customer irritation. Trust me. They even have secure FTP processing, so you can take In fact, we've done this with a Christmas card list. You upload it, Melissa cleans it, you get it back. It's perfect. Zip +4. Everything's just right, just the way the post office wants it. You choose the way that meets your business needs. Melissa continually undergoes independent security audits because they're committed to the security of your data, the privacy of your data. And of course, in many cases, there's compliance requirements. So you'll be glad to know Melissa is SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA, GDPR compliant. Your data is safe with Melissa. They're the best. They're really the greatest. Don't put up with sour customer data. Try Melissa's API in the developer portal. Play with it. You can clean 1,000 records for free. Right now, go to melissa.com/twit. MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. There are the address experts. Paul is calling for, and I don't understand why, a moment of silence for Chromebooks, which celebrate their 10th birthday this week.
Yeah, that's a little bit of poor writing. So let me correct that. So
normally you'd celebrate, but okay.
Yeah. So, but not here. We wouldn't.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Chromebooks have turned 10. This is confusing to a lot of people who thought they'd be gone 3 years ago or something. No, the reason I'm highlighting this isn't because I think we need to discuss Chromebooks all that much, but rather because there are many factors that have led to the success of Chromebook. Simpler, cheaper, blah, 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 whatever. But honestly, I think a big chunk of it was Microsoft decided, a long time ago now, 10 years ago-ish, to compete with their PC maker partners and create something called Surface. And I got to tell you, that didn't go over well with any of them. And some of them were really public about it at the time. Some of them were a little quieter, but I have heard this from multiple people, from multiple PC makers, really didn't go over well at all. Now, things have calmed down a little bit since then, but the big thing that's changed is every single PC maker on Earth makes Chromebooks now. And those guys that make really nice computers, premium computers like the ThinkPads, the HPs, the Dells, they all make really nice Chromebooks now too. Mm-hmm. And a big part of the success of Chromebook was, how do we get the industry to embrace a rival platform? I have an idea. Let's compete with them, and then we'll, give them something else they can, And a lot of these guys, the PC makers, adopted Chromebook just to be like, we just need an alternative now. We maybe we don't believe in this thing, maybe we don't think it's going anywhere, but we want to send a message to Microsoft. Now, of course, 10 years in, actually, these things are doing pretty well. 1 out of every 10 computers sold last year was a Chromebook. And we're seeing some really nice. In fact, I've got 2 in now, one from HP and one from Lenovo. What do I call like premium business class Chromebooks? Like with the real ThinkPad experience, not like a plastic piece of junk, but like a magnesium alloy, full ThinkPad pointing stick.
How much are they?
All the stuff,
What's the price?
That one is about $600.
It's still not bad. I mean, you can get a piece.
I mean, there's an HP you could spend over $1,000.
Well,
even
really nice Google
Chromebook
stuff, was always very, very.
But
pricey.
but Chromebooks like PCs, you have that range, right? And so you can get the little plastic piece of junk for your kid if that's what you want to get. You can get a nice one for yourself. You can get a really nice one for yourself if that's what you want. But now we have a lot of choice. And again, I am not literally not saying it's only because Microsoft did it. I don't mean it like that. But one of the many things I think that contributed to the success of Chromebooks, and the reason they're not just still around but are very successful today, is because Microsoft made this decision. We need to get into hardware, and that did not go over. We kind of don't talk about this a lot anymore, but it didn't go over well in the PC space. So here we are. That's the moment of silence, I guess.
If I thought you were going to say a moment of silence for Microsoft, who's really losing market share to Chromebooks in schools.
Well, no. I mean,
that's why Windows 10X is coming, right?
Yeah.
Like they know.
Yeah,
that they're in trouble
competition
with that.
is always good, right? And so the benefit will always be the customers. So whether it's iPads or Chromebooks or whatever, I mean, Microsoft needs someone to keep them on their toes for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they don't feel that way, but okay.
No.
I'm sure they would like to coast, but
Keeping us on our toes, well, okay.
Thanks.
However, they are not resting. There are rumors of a new Surface 4, right?
Yep, Surface Laptop 4, which you would expect. it looks from leaks that various people are picking up like it's going to be pretty incremental, which also is not that surprising, I guess, because that's how they refresh surfaces these days. It sounds like you'll get a choice of Intel or AMD on two different size machines, 13 and 15 inch, which is new because before, I think with the laptop 3, there were certain configurations that were AMD, certain ones were Intel, right?
I think the 15 for consumers was only AMD, and if you wanted the Intel, you had to buy the business version.
Right.
I think that was the mix.
Yeah.
Here's the big news. There is. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm like, nothing killer, right?
There is one thing. So I like the idea of having AMD on Surface Laptop as an option. Surface Laptop 3, if you got the AMD option, it was a crappy chipset. It was like the Ryzen 3000 series. It was just terrible. And since then, of course, they released a 4000 series, and that's what's going to be in the Surface Laptop 4. So that's huge. That's actually big. So before, the advice was always like, well, get the Intel version. This time it's like, well, actually, you might want to get the AMD version. That's probably going to be at least as good. But Microsoft being Microsoft, of course, they're always like a generation behind. So AMD has released the 5000 series chipset since then, and we're starting to see that come out to computers. So you'd kind of hope they'd go with the newest one, but I feel like they've been kind of bit by what they did back with the first generation Surface Book and Surface Pro 4 probably with Skylake, and maybe being on the leading edge is not where they want to be anymore. And I suppose when you're spending a lot of money on a computer, I mean, honestly, we as enthusiasts, we're always like, we want the next thing, we want the next thing. But I think the reality of the business market they're targeting is like, we want the thing that's going to work.
Right.
You know, and maybe this is
a laptop, you want dependability, right? Like that's what you want. You don't need to be, you want something that's like tried and true and you know it's going to be solid. That's what I thought when I got the laptop 3 and then I had to pay $400 to get it fixed. But yeah, that was the thought. Well,
but at least it was out of warranty by like days.
By a week or something. Yeah, literally by like a week. Yeah.
Oh, God.
But you know what? I feel like I don't want them to do something really crazy with a laptop. I like there's a reason clamshell style laptops work.
Yeah.
For certain groups of people. They're lappable, and it's a form factor that works.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we learned in 2020, other than the COVID stuff that was terrible, it's that this AMD Ryzen 4000 series chipset is fantastic. I reviewed 2 or 3 laptops. They're excellent. The battery life is great. The performance is great. This is huge. This is much better than. Oh, are you really? That's funny.
The HP that you let me have.
Yeah, the Elite
Ryzen.
Must be what
4000
Elite something.
Yep. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful computer.
Really good. Yep. But you know what I'm more excited about than the laptop 4 is this rumor from Brad that there's going to be a new webcam from Microsoft.
Right.
What? Really? That's funny.
Yeah. But you know, think about this, right? What's one of the things that sold out during the pandemic that nobody could get? Webcams, right? Like everybody wanted webcams for home. And Microsoft's been in that market with LifeCam forever. And then when they came out with Surface Hub, that came with a little mini webcam, I think, as part of the package.
It was going to. That was, and we were supposed to get that in the piece. It was a USB thing.
Yeah.
A USB-C thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And they never ended up selling it commercially, right? So it sounds like they may finally come to market with a commercial webcam of some sort.
Now, I don't know if he says this, but I have to assume if Microsoft is putting out a webcam, that it will have Windows Hello facial recognition capabilities.
You would think, right?
And this is something that's been kind of lacking, right? And Microsoft, for a very brief period of time, had a fingerprint reader, remember, like a USB-based. But I don't think it was Windows Hello compatible, so they got rid of it. But there really isn't a market for third or first-party Windows Hello peripherals like you'd think there would be.
I know.
There are 1 or 2, but it's hard to find a Windows Hello compatible webcam, an external one. And I don't know of any add-on fingerprint readers or anything like that. I mean, it seems like this stuff should have happened years ago.
True. Now, he said, I'm looking at what he says for specs. He said it'll likely have a privacy cover, support for HDR video, but not for 4K.
That's probably fine. Who wants to send 4K over the internet?
Right. Yeah. And Yeah, I think it's good. I feel like Microsoft should do more peripherals. I do.
Yeah, I agree.
Why?
They did a really nice ergonomic keyboard, right? And then
They do a nice
they haven't
mouse.
really done a lot.
I only
right?
buy Microsoft mices.
You do?
Yeah, keyboards and mice. I'm all Microsoft. Yeah. There's an element to kind of completing the picture. You know, when you buy a Surface Pro or whatever, you get the keyboard cover, you get the mouse, you get the bag, you get I like the whole ecosystem idea. That was one of the things that drew me to Nokia when they came to Windows Phone. It's one of the things like OnePlus kind of does this, Samsung does this, obviously Apple does this. I mean, you want to kind of, they're doing, and Microsoft's doing it in gaming. There's an Xbox wireless headset that's coming out next week. Obviously, all the controllers and the battery packs and blah, blah, blah. It's like you have like a part of having a healthy ecosystem for any platform is you have first-party stuff, because a lot of people who are fans are going to want that just because it has the logo on it or whatever. And then, of course, the third-party solutions as well. And we see some of that in Surface. I mean, if you go look, there
Surface
are a number of
right?
Yeah, there's a number of peripherals for sure, but I think they have enough fans that they would just sell. They could just sell them to people who just want the Surface one. Headphones are like this.
Yep. I keep waiting for them to do a headset, like a Jabra headset, which they still haven't done. That just makes so much sense for them, right? Since they're so oriented toward work, and you could have all kinds of integration with Cortana on that. I'm just surprised they haven't done it. There were rumors they were going to do that too, but never came to market.
Right. They're a mysterious company.
They are. Yeah, they have different priorities, right? Like what they think is important to get out and get right first on hardware. So.
Yep. And, no, I mean, 2.5 years ago when they released the first Surface headphones, you're like, okay, like,
I know.
But what about earbuds? And, and then, this stuff kind of happens over time.
Mm-hmm.
And about the, I would say, the lightest story of the week.
I will challenge that, but go on.
Okay. OneDrive is getting dark mode on the web.
Yeah, it's pretty late.
That's pretty.
It's getting other
light.
stuff. I mean,
it doesn't really deserve a bullet point. Even it's just
Well, there's a set of features coming to OneDrive. That was the big one I pulled out. They publish a roadmap for OneDrive like they do for other products. I use this web plugin, which is called called Dark Reader, and Dark Reader makes websites dark. Remember a few weeks back, Microsoft Word for Windows Desktop, I think in the Insider program, added dark mode support where the document surface is dark, and I love that. I mean, I'm really sensitive to light. But dark mode, this dark thing in the browser can screw up some sites. Like if you go to Google Maps is one of the ugly ones. Like it's just, you can't use it in dark mode. It's terrible. So having native support in the site itself for dark mode, to me, is actually kind of key. So, I made a bullet point. I'm sorry. No, I thought it was, I thought it was kind of cool.
I throw those stories into This Week in Google because I just like to hear Jeff Jarvis gnash his teeth. For some reason, he's become a poster boy for anti-dark mode.
We have a way lower bar for quality here, Leo. We're just trying to fill 2 hours.
It's been a quiet week. After Ignite, it's always like kind of quiet.
Yeah. Hey, what was your overall review on Ignite?
That's an interesting point.
I thought this second part was much lighter and a little weak compared to part one.
Was Mesh the big story, or was there something? Yeah. And Teams,
it was the big story, but it wasn't. I don't think it was relevant to a whole lot of people. Yeah. It was the glitziest story, right?
Right.
I feel like when I mentioned earlier one of the reasons why they split Ignite into two. It was because of the experience they had with Build, which is a smaller show, and doing 3 different sets of the same session with the same people was very tiring. A lot of scrambling, a lot of people staying up really late, and it was exhausting. And they said, look, Ignite is a 5-day show. We can't do that. Let's split it in half. We'll do two-day shows or whatever. And of course, when you hear that, you think, wow, like they have a lot to announce, And there's a big, there is a big list of news. We still got the book of news, but yeah, I mean, the reality is, if you look at like this OneDrive story or the Edge stuff or the Team stuff or whatever product you want to talk about, I feel like this is stuff that would have just been announced anyway. Microsoft announces a slew of updates every month for Microsoft 365 across platforms. So I feel like they too kind of got to it and they were like, wow, this is a little light. We need some kind of a wow moment here. And I think that was the reason for the mesh stuff. But, you know, I mean, I joke about this, but the reality is mesh is very much to me like the Microsoft Viva stuff, where I feel like they're kind of just bundling stuff they already had. Yeah. Obviously, they're going to improve it and add to it. Yeah. But they're doing it for more of a licensing purpose.
Right.
Which is fine. It's a company. I don't begrudge them making a buck, but it's kind of a hard thing to sell to me, to IT pros, because I think these people understand what's happening. They're sitting in, well, now they're sitting in their underwear, but normally they'd be sitting in an audience, and they're like, well, I don't know why I'm just picturing that, but anyway, they're
I don't know why you are either.
And I kind of wish you hadn't, because now that's all I'm seeing. So
right, they're slurping a giant Bloody Mary out of a 7-Eleven cup. But anyway, whatever they're doing. But they're kind of seeing it for what it is. And I know one of the complaints over the years when we went to shows would be, you come out of a keynote and there's a lot of whiz-bang stuff. And it's like, well, how does this impact me in my day-to-day as an IT administrator maybe, or whatever my job function is? And yeah, it was a little light, but I like spreading it out. I mean, Microsoft had been moving to a model where they might have had only one major show a year, right? Yeah. They were moving in that direction. They were cutting shows and consolidating and adding more and more. Ignite had become this monster, and it makes it very hard to understand what the truly important stuff is in all of the news. This time it was pretty easy to see that there wasn't anything important. No, I don't mean, but there wasn't like a lot super important, I guess.
No, that's a fair point.
But it was a moment
I remember going to some of those Ignites where just the number of people there was overwhelming, but the amount of stuff we were supposed to write was so overwhelming.
Oh, it was terrible.
I know. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay.
Remember, it would all be Sunday night. It'd be Sunday night.
Yeah.
We're in Orlando or wherever we are. Yeah. We just got the giant briefing. It's 1,100 pages long, and this can all go live at 9 o'clock the next morning. What we want to do is hang out in the bar, but now confronted by this horrible list of news, it's like, okay, we got to deal with this. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, it's just too much stuff, and so it made it a little easier, I think, splitting it up.
That's fair. That's fair. And they still are going to have multiple events this year, right? Like we know there's going to be a build because Jeff Sandquist accidentally let that slip during something.
Accidentally.
Accidentally. Well, there were rumors there might not be a build, right?
If anyone else had done that, Sandquist would have come down on him like a load of bricks.
That's true.
Just saying.
But we know build probably like May, right? And then Inspire, which is their big partner event, July. We know that's happening. And then probably another Ignite in the fall, like either virtual or hybrid or whatever, So things will continue to happen.
Okay. I mean, I would have been upset if, say, I ran a podcast network and I had gotten up early to watch this thing. That maybe
I got a lot of mileage out
that
of the
moment of like, what the hell am I looking at? Are we underwater? What's happening
around,
here?
Burning Man campfire.
I wasn't thrilled about getting up that early. I had hoped there'd be something, more interesting. And yet, I got a lot of mileage out of that Burning Man clip. So
come on, Pokemon. I knew, like, when Pokemon was part of it, you were going to be there.
Boy.
Okay. Actually, Lisa's the big Pokemon player in the family now.
But still.
I've moved on to Animal Crossing.
I know, and they should have had them there, too.
They should have.
Even better.
VR Animal Crossing, I would have gotten excited about.
See? You would have gotten up at 6 a.m. for that.
I'm on my island. Oh, my God, I'm here.
You and Alex Kipman doing a dance around a campfire.
Now that you mention that I would buy a $3,000 HoloLens for that.
Would you really? Well,
I have an Animal Crossing problem, I have to admit.
I'm actually surprised there haven't been cost-reduced versions of HoloLens. I don't understand.
Well, they're
how
not
this
aiming
thing
at
is
the
still
consumer
$3,000.
market.
No, I get that, but if you want businesses to adopt them too, I mean,
we're not going to go
lower price is still lower price, right?
Yeah.
No, you know what? They sell a finance plan where you pay by month, and that's what they figure you to do.
I like to buy a 10-pack of HoloLens.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I know.
Crazy.
All right. We've put it off long enough. Let's get Xboxing.
We're not putting it off. We're building to it.
Building to it.
Building up to
the
it.
highlights of the show. And
Yes.
we kind of crest the hill and it crashes after this. That's how I see it.
Don't rush through this, Paul. Take your time. Mary Jo.
I will. I'm going to milk this one.
Yep, milk it.
After months of anticipation, Microsoft announced this week that it has completed its acquisition of, I'm going to call it Bethesda. It's really ZeniMax Media, right? But Bethesda, right? This is the company that owns Bethesda Game Studios, of course, id Software, which to me is the big one, and then several other studios. And a big part of Microsoft's strategy to really have a lot of in-house and then also, dare we say, platform exclusive titles, right? So that was the little dagger at the end of this announcement where he finally admitted what we've all sort of thought was probably going to happen, that Bethesda will continue to publish games to rival platforms, but Xbox will be the best place to experience new games, including some new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC. So that is going to happen. Sorry if you're worried about that, but whatever. This one is kind of confusing. Microsoft yesterday announced something called the March Xbox Update. Now, they announce updates to the Xbox not every month, but every few months, 3 months, 4 months, certainly every 6 months. And usually this takes the form of a dashboard update for the console. In this era, we have dashboard updates that are common to Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. And so you sort of assume when you see this tight language, like that's what this is. And that is not what this is. There's no dashboard update per se, like a major new rev of the dashboard. This is actually a series of updates across different Xbox on different platforms. So some of these things apply to Xbox consoles. Some of them apply to specific consoles like Xbox Series X and S. Some of them are for the Xbox app on mobile, on Windows 10 or elsewhere. Some of them have to do with subscriptions. So it's kind of like a series of updates. But to me, the two biggest ones are the feature they talked about earlier, FPS boost and auto HDR toggles in the dashboard for Xbox Series X and S. So for those games that support these features, you can turn those features on or off in the dashboard going forward, which is really cool. And they'll identify which ones are using those features. And then, of course, the Xbox wireless headset, which I think I mentioned earlier, is shipping next week, and they're adding support for that across all platforms. I think this is Xbox One, Series X and S, Windows 10, and possibly mobile as well. But the Xbox app has a way to configure how the headset works, all the different features and so forth. So that is all coming soon. Forza Horizon 4, we already knew this was happening, coming to Steam, so it is now available on Steam. There are 3 different versions of the game, anywhere from $60 to $120, I believe. The big thing here is crossplay. So anywhere Forza Horizon is available, if you're playing in a game multiplayer, you can play with people who are on PC, through the Windows Microsoft Store, or Xbox console, Game Pass, et cetera, et cetera. So
what does playing on Forza mean? You're racing them?
Yeah, racing. It's a racing game, yeah. This is kind of, Forza Horizon is kind of the arcadey version, I guess I'll just say, of Forza. So it's beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah, this gorgeous program.
Yeah, beautiful game, but a little, quicker to get into and so forth. And then we mentioned Edge and cross-platform and all that blah, 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 but, Microsoft never said anything about Xbox. And Xbox is one of the platforms that Edge is available to, and as of today, the version of Edge that's on the Xbox and is the version that shipped with the Xbox One originally, which is the Edge, the legacy Edge version. And so they announced this week that they are in fact bringing the new Edge to Xbox. And so I think I'm not going to try to explain this because it makes me crazy just talking about it. But if you're familiar with the Xbox Insider program, God help you, there are multiple layers. It makes the Windows one look like it makes sense. There is one specific part of the Xbox Insider program that is getting this to test. And then, of course, it's going to spread to more and more. And eventually it will be added to a dashboard update in the future. But as of now, all we know is that it is coming. And it looks to be, based on the shot I've seen, it looks like the one you see in Windows. Like it's a full-featured desktop style browser. So fun, I guess. And I haven't written this up, but I'll just mention this too. Microsoft announced today that they're adding a languages label to all of the games in their store. And what that will help you do if you're on Xbox or in the Game Pass app or whatever, you'll be able to tell if any game is available in different languages. So that means like the interface, the audio that you hear, the subtitles that are available. Any of these games can support up to, I think it's 27 languages. Not all of them support all of them. Not all of them even do this. But anyway, you'll be able to see that information. That will help people just make educated decisions if they want to get a game in their own language or whatever. So that's, I think that's available. I didn't write it up yet. I'm not sure when it's available. If it's not available now, it's coming soon.
Didgeridoo in our chat room had an interesting question about the Bethesda acquisition. Actually, come to think of it, it's not just Fallout, the new Fallout that's long overdue. We haven't seen a new kind of Skyrim. What is the family of that? We haven't seen a new one.
I thought that got pushed back.
I wonder
like
I wonder if Microsoft, now that they've closed on Bethesda, is going to kind of push some of that stuff forward. Or
so, I can't remember where I heard this, but I believe there is a Microsoft gaming event that is tentatively scheduled for sometime this month. So maybe
that's it. Oh, good.
Maybe now that maybe now that this has happened, they can start talking about it.
You and I should get together, get up early.
Yes.
Wear our boxer
I'll get
shorts,
my
get the Slurpee full
my
of
7-Eleven
Bloody
cup.
Marys. Yep.
Bloody Marys. Giant, like one of those crazy straws.
Yeah. I'll send you a hat that's got the Bloody Mary in the
I could just do it from the hat.
Right, yeah.
Right. Is he drinking blood? No, it's cool. It's vodka and tomato
But
juice.
just so you don't have a date for that, that's just a rumor.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
let me know, because I wouldn't mind.
March 23rd, wasn't that the rumor?
Oh, it better not be, because that's the Apple event. 1+9
is it really?
is already going to be eclipsed by it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, so maybe they'll move it.
Oh, it would be hysterical if it were March 23rd.
I thought it was.
Oh, my
Classic.
God.
Classic Microsoft.
We now, with the new TriCaster, have the capability of putting every event in one window. So that actually be kind of fun. We could have the Microsoft event.
Can you do a multicast kind of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It'd be fun.
Excuse me.
You know what? They can move it. A lot of the stuff for those events is canned too. And
I think we can all agree, as much if we love Microsoft or whatever, that putting a Microsoft event side by side with an Apple event maybe isn't the smartest thing.
Not a great idea.
I already think the OnePlus event is just totally, like.
Yeah.
Oh, was that day too?
Yes.
Is OnePlus that day?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
OnePlus, they try. Oh, well.
Oh, well. Yeah, I know. It's got to be depressing when, for any company, even as big as Microsoft,
I know.
when you have a date and then Apple says, oh, by the way.
Oh, yeah. No, we're taking that one.
I think, honestly, I think Apple's going to be doing a lot of events this year. I think that's one of the takeaways from the success of these canned events is, hey, we can do as many as we want. There may be, almost a couple of events every quarter. We had 3.
I think you tone it down quite a bit. I mean, honestly, a guy on the stage talking is fine. I don't see why we have to swoop around the camera, canvas or the campus, and
it's fun.
It's fun. But I mean, if they're going to do a bunch of events, just mail it in. It's okay.
Yeah, mail it in. Yeah.
Did you see the Sonos event, for example? They had yesterday.
I did not.
Right?
No.
All right. So this thing was 15 minutes long, canned, right?
Yeah.
Had a nice little space at the bottom so you could tell what segment you were in at the time. When we were done with it, there was a little area for the press stuff, blah, blah, blah. It was like the simplest thing in the world. It was great.
That's perfect.
I watched this and I thought, this is exactly how everyone should do this.
Yeah, 15 minutes, no more than half an hour.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, we're going to respectfully your time. We're talking about a speaker here, folks. We don't need 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'll
never buy another Sonos product again, but glad to hear they're still around.
I didn't mean to throw salt on that.
I hate them. It's all right. I've replaced them completely. All the functionality is replaced. It's not.
What did you replace it with?
Almost everything does multi-room sound now.
Okay.
It's just like
but
a trivial
What
thing.
did you choose? Like, what was
I have everything.
Okay.
I'm going to put
You
Cortana
one
in
of
there.
everything?
Yeah, no. I think most. I have 5 of the little AirPod or HomePod Minis, Apple's thing.
Okay.
Because they do follow you around, which is kind of nice. You can move around from room to room. But honestly, what I ended up doing is getting good speakers in the main living spaces. my office, the living room, and the bedroom.
And when you say good speakers, attached to like a component stereo system, or
yeah, practically, yeah. I mean, some cases, like in the bedroom, it's so I got speakers from ELAC, which is a very nice kind of excellent speakers, but economical. And I got an ELAC kind of like it's like a mini receiver. It has multiple inputs, but it doesn't do much. But with that, you can Bluetooth. Yes, exactly. Bluetooth or AirPlay to it. If you can AirPlay to something or Bluetooth to something.
Honestly, AirPlay works great.
AirPlay's great.
I will say that.
So if I just have AirPlay, good quality AirPlay speakers everywhere, I don't need Sonos. And you can still do, you can even say, you know, hey, Echo or Google or Siri, play in every room. And all of them do it now. So the secret sauce for Sonos was that. They were overpriced for what you got, I thought. And as soon as they killed my system, because it was out of date, it was like, okay, fine, but you know, I gave them all to my son. I say, here, have some out-of-date speakers. The speakers are still good. No, the speakers.
I was going to say he's probably really happy with what happened.
He's very happy.
Those are nice speakers.
But the thing that really killed me was they bifurcated it. So I had some newer speakers, some older speakers, and I had to use 2 different apps. Right. Depending on which speakers I wanted to talk to. Not good.
This is an improvement over what they were originally going to do. You know, but yes,
And then you keep getting notices, hey, your speakers are out of date. So just, the hell with you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be so angry.
No,
you did. You touched a nerve. I'm sorry.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
ELAC. I'll look into this. So ELAC is the receiver's ELAC as well?
Well, it's not.
I mean, not a receiver. I mean, it's a little like a digital receiver.
It's a switcher, an amplifier.
Okay.
And it's enough for the stereo ones. But as long, I don't know if it does AirPlay 2. I think it might only do. You really want everything to be AirPlay 2. If you have an iPhone,
I would say to cover the world, you want AirPlay 2 and Bluetooth.
And Bluetooth, and they do. The ELAC does Bluetooth. Which is fine.
I mean, some companies, I don't remember the names of these guys anymore, but Bluetooth speaker makers now do like stereo pairing, which before was impossible. And like, that makes a big difference.
Well, that's kind of my point, is that the things that Sonos had owned, including stereo pairing and multi-room sound, they don't own anymore.
Right.
And so the premium, I mean, we still have Sonos speakers all over the studio. I'm looking at one right now. But the premium you paid for all that, I mean, I must have spent 10 grand on Sonos gear over the years. It was, and then it was obsoleted, was kind of, ow, you know?
Yeah.
Ow. I mean, that's the way.
Was any of the, not to beat this to death, I mean, was any of the stuff that got obsoleted within a couple of years of purchase kind of thing?
No, no. I think it took... I think the moves and the newer Sonos platforms, they started shipping for a few years before they announced, okay, now we're going to phase out the Gen 1 stuff. So it wasn't it's not unreasonable.
I have a couple of speakers that could be upgraded, and they'll give me like 15% or something.
Yeah, you get
which is
a little discount.
Nothing.
And then, by the way, don't do it because they will then brick those speakers, so you can't give them to somebody else.
Right.
Which is another thing that kind of got me angry.
Sure.
No, I think I was foolish. Buy good speakers that don't have any technology. They're just good speakers.
Yeah.
Because they won't obsolete.
Sure.
And then technology to drive them, you can replace that. That was the mistake. Everything you buy from Sonos had this hardware built into the speaker, so that when the hardware was obsolete, the whole thing was obsolete. So that wasn't a great solution.
I mean, I have like $2,500 worth of Sonos equipment. I can see from
anybody
here.
who invested in Sonos, invested. It's a heavy investment.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I
you don't
expected.
go lightly into the Sonos ecosystem.
It was an expensive lesson. Decouple the speaker system from the IoT stuff, because the IoT stuff was going to obsolete, but speakers don't obsolete. So it's the same thing with camera systems. Buy good lenses, because those will still work, and the bodies get upgraded regularly.
Yep.
Anyway, it was a learning moment. Good learnings. Thank you, Sonos. I appreciate it.
Learning. You said it.
I said the word.
I didn't mean to poke you there. Sorry
you
about
got a
that.
big, woo. Yeah, Leo just went blah.
It was a dressing down.
I apologize. We'll edit that whole thing out.
No, it's actually really interesting.
That's nice of you to say.
No, it is. I know, because I have a lot of Sonos. I mean, I think about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the clear lesson is that technology evolves faster than the durable goods. It's why you don't build a browser into a refrigerator. Because there's a lot of people with Samsung refrigerators that the browser's obsolete.
Sure. I bet there's a Samsung browser in my TV. I bet if I looked, I could find one.
I'm sure it is. And it's IE8.
It's IE5, yeah.
And so, and they're not going to update it. And so that's why I wish I could buy a TV that didn't have any smarts. I just want a good monitor. And then the smarts I can put in with
yes,
Roku.
I agree with that completely. There's nothing more worthless than smart TV apps.
Yeah. Decouple, I guess, is the idea. In fact, even
none of these people want to be dumb pipes, though, Leo. That's the problem. They don't want to be dumb speaker makers. They don't want to be dumb TV makers. They don't want to be dumb internet suppliers.
And I think consumers signaled, we want a simple solution. We don't want wires.
Yeah.
So this consumers said we wanted this. I mean, you and I both bought a lot of this stuff. I'm actually thinking this now about all-in-one computers.
Oh, God, please.
At the time, it seemed nice.
I just had a conversation with a PC maker about this. This is a huge problem.
Because... Yep. There's like, for instance, I have an iMac. I have a lot of them.
Sure.
There are better screens out now. Nothing wrong with the guts of the iMac, but I would like to replace the screen.
Yeah, but it's one thing.
Else.
You bought an appliance.
So it's not upgradable, really. But I would, from now on, I'm going to buy a NUC or something like a NUC or a Mac Mini, because then I can go through speakers. Or even, I don't know if I need a tower case anymore these days.
Yeah, I was just looking because I want to replace my NUC. I was looking at this too. It's really hard to find a low profile PC case. I mean, some Dell sells. I think Lenovo does.
NUCs are fine, right?
I like that. Yeah, I would get it. I'm going to get a NUC. I think. Yeah.
I know there's more heat in the small.
I want like an AMD NUC.
Yeah, because NUC
they're out there.
An Intel conception.
Intel's
but I'm sure
product,
Newegg or somebody will offer bare bones NUCs.
Yeah, there are AMD products like
that's a good idea actually. There might be a heat issue. Those are pretty hot processors. So that's the only issue about those little form factors is you got a lot of heat coming in there.
Leo, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over the fan noise. What did you say?
Evil John says ASUS makes a NUC, an AMD NUC.
Okay. Yeah, I know some people do. Some companies do.
What do they call it? Mini ATC? Is that the non-Intel name?
The format?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, probably.
I think it was Mini ATC. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. We're going to go to the back of the book. How about that? But in a moment, we'll have beer. I really like the name.
Awesome beer.
I really like the name.
I misread your beer name, by the way. I'll tell you what I thought it said later.
No, don't say it out loud. I love the name. I don't know if it's great beer, but knowing Mary Jo, it is. It is. Code name. We've got Enterprise. We've got an app pick of the week. I like it when your tips of the week are kind of behavioral like this.
Yeah. I have behavioral issues, so I think about this stuff.
We all do.
I had a friend email a group of us last week, and he was saying, "Hey, what do you guys do for TV?" Like he was thinking about going to, off of cable and adopting services, and what does that look like? And a bunch of us have already done this, and we were kind of going back and forth. But the one comment that always comes out these days with this type of service is like, this gets expensive. It's not as inexpensive as it used to be, and it's pretty much as expensive as cable. So, given that, like, what's the point? And this is where I pipe in, because the thing that I think is very important, and is kind of the subject here, is you can go in and out of a service at any time really easily. Getting rid of a cable or switching cable companies is a nightmare, and it's, even if it's not less expensive, it's still hugely advantageous to be able to adopt whatever services. And by the way, if everything goes south financially, I mean, you could go month to month and say, well, I'll do Netflix this month, I'll do Hulu next month, whatever it is. I mean, that portability is humongous. And what it occurred to me was, like, this portability kind of exists in many, many things now, not just those kinds of services. And coincidentally, this past week, I guess this was a couple weeks ago, I got a text message from Mint Mobile, and I kind of was zoning on this, but a year ago this month, I switched from Google Fi to Mint Mobile for my cell phone plan. And at the time, it was like a 12 gig plan, but now it's 15 gig, but it's $300 a year, which is $25 a month, which is crazy. It's T-Mobile based.
Isn't this great?
It's domestic.
By the way, I got to say, that's a sponsor, but
Oh, okay. Well,
I did the same thing. $300.
Whatever.
12 gigs. It's amazing.
I was using Google Fi. So like the way Google Fi is great, and it's for people that travel internationally, like we've all been doing for the past year. Obviously, Google Fi is fantastic.
Yes, that's right.
But the base price for Google Fi, which is the service itself, $20 plus $10 for the first gig, $30 a month before taxes, is as much as I'm paying now for 15 gigs of data. 15 gigs on Google Fi would be 100 and whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's not even close. And when I look at my average bill, and which I did a year ago, over the previous 6 or 8 months or whatever it was, I was paying more than double on average every month for Google Fi versus the thing I'm using now. So I re-upped again for the same plan just today, coincidentally. But I could have gone in any other direction. And of course, if and when I do travel internationally again, one thing that Google Fi can do, and Mary Jo knows this because she does this too, is you can just turn it on when you go away. And Google Fi is wonderful to have when you go away. So if there's a $30 upfront free, and I'm going to spend a week or 3 weeks or whatever it is in Europe, and I put a bunch of data on there, and it's $100 or something, who cares? Like that's great. So I think just being open to being portable to all this stuff is really, really smart. Even the Sonos story you just told is in a way related to this, because you got stuck in kind of a dead end thing, and it wasn't portable, and not in the sense of moving around with it, but I mean it just wasn't future proof. And
more portable is more than just being able to move around. I know exactly what you're saying. Flexible. Yeah, being flexible, exactly.
I think, anyone, like we've all probably done this at one time or another, like you're on some cable modem thing or a cable plan, whatever it is, with TV, phone, and internet or whatever, and you switch services, and it's a nightmare. It's like the worst thing in the world, But once you do that one time, you're like, okay, I could do this again if I had to. And that's still probably the worst one, but switching cell service, it's so easy now to move your phone number around. It's switching these internet services. It's just... maybe you're not going to save the same, as much as when I first did YouTube TV, whenever it first launched, it was $35 a month. I think the base price for YouTube TV right now is $90 a month.
Is it?
Crazy.
It's gone up a lot.
I think so.
Is it that much?
It's 80 or 90.
Oh my
I think
God.
So.
Oh my God.
It's nuts. So you're like, oh God, that's terrible. But in my case, like my wife and I don't really watch live TV. I mean, the exception is sports, and I turned on YouTube TV to watch, I don't know what it was, the end of the basketball season of the not baseball. The football. We watched Super Bowl recently, and we do.
It's kind of great for watching football.
TV.
Football, I got to be honest with you.
Yeah. So if you want to watch football, you got to pay for that kind of thing. But if you have if you're looking at months where you're like, I'm not watching Friends on Thursday night. Who cares? Like, I don't need to, I don't have to be there on live TV.
So 90s of you, Paul.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, but it's just, but I mean, I think a lot of people still think like that. Like,
no, I know.
What if something happens,
Yeah.
What do you, what's going to happen?
Right.
Like Rachel and, I can't think of their names.
Ross and
Ross,
Rachel.
thank you.
Yep.
It's been a long time. I know, you realize those guys are all like 60 years old now. So anyway, just be portable,
Be portable.
Just be open to it. People are paying $70 a month for cell phone access on AT&T because they've had an AT&T account.
Inertia.
Since the iPhone came out.
Pure inertia.
2007.
Yeah.
Or whatever year that was. 2007, right? Don't do it. You don't have to do that.
You don't need to.
AT&T has cheaper plans than that through their subsidiaries and through MVNO.
These companies count on this, by the way, this inertia. Totally.
Yep.
I
think once you start doing it, you're like, oh, I could do this everywhere, And I think you just need to take the first step. So do it. And then the app pick, it's interesting that there were two M1 related app updates in the past couple of days. Microsoft announced Visual Studio Code is now available natively on M1, which is great. It's an awesome code editor. If you're a coder, obviously you already know about it. And then just today, Adobe announced the first release, non-beta release of Photoshop, which is not 100% feature complete, but it's pretty damn close.
M1 is very much getting in gear. I was talking about this yesterday, where pretty much everybody's now making the move, which is good.
Yep. Well, and of course, because that's the platform now, guys. Right. I mean, and a lot of cases, the interesting thing is we just talked to, and Corel, there's a third one. I'm sorry, I forgot about Corel. The Corel Draw Suite 2021 is available natively on M1 now as well. And, it's really interesting because every time you talk to these people, you always hear the same thing, like, oh, this is really fast. It's really fast. And actually, as it turns out, like Apple talks a lot about universal apps, it's not always smart to do a universal app version because of the size. And a lot of these people, Adobe's doing this with Photoshop, Corel is doing this with their suite, and and Visual Studio is actually doing this as well. They don't actually have a universal version of their apps. They have an M1 native version, and they have an Intel version.
You download the one that's right for your platform. Yep. Yeah,
and you save a lot of disk space by doing that, apparently, because you're basically not downloading two versions of it or whatever. So, I think the story when this thing was first announced was everyone's going to go universal, and I don't know that I even thought about it in any other way. But as it turns out, you can actually make a native Intel version and a native M1 and just have them be separate downloads.
I think that comes from historical. The last time Apple did this, high-speed internet was not ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And people got it on a disk. So you're going to make a universal version. But nowadays, big deal. You're going to download the version that's right. It's easy. Why make a universal
and smart version? Installers will do the right one for you. I know Corel said that theirs will detect the system. If you go to Visual Studio or like code.visualstudio.com,
I think they
can choose. And if you look at it, it's crazy how many versions there are. So,
I'm a big fan of VS Code, I have to say. It's Electron, right? I think that's why.
It is Electron.
Yeah. It's so once Electron got ported to M1, a lot of these programs followed suit. It was easy for them to do. All right. It's time for the Enterprise Pick of the Week. Mary Jo Foley picks up the story.
So we were talking about Ignite and how there weren't that many big announcements. But you know what? Paul and I mentioned this in passing. But there actually were some interesting Windows announcements there. And I still haven't gotten around to writing this up, but I think it's worth mentioning for people who want to go check it out because there's a lot of video about this and blog posts. If you go to Microsoft's tech community site and you go to the IT Pro blog, you'll see a few articles about this coming. It's a service that's going to let IT pros get more control over drivers and firmware updates. And the way that's going to work is through Intune, and I believe indirectly through co-management if you have Configuration Manager. The idea is instead of you managing all these different driver and firmware updates that come from third parties independently, it will be routed through Windows Update instead, and you'll be able to control everything centrally. So this sounds amazing. There's a private preview of this that's supposedly starting to happen this month, and they're saying this will be out generally available for Windows Update for business customers in the second half of this year. So I'm gonna look.
Oh, what happened? Sriracha.
Hey.
Sriracha hung up on us briefly.
Oh, no. He just switched my camera.
At it with this podcast, you're done.
Okay. At the beginning of the podcast, we said the cats weren't so smart. That's pretty smart. I don't understand how he knows how to do that.
You know what? He's like, we've had enough of this show now, haven't we?
It's amazing. It's time for lunch. Wow. Okay, we're
time
back.
For scritching.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
I'm just going to switch the camera. We'll see what she does. Watch this.
I know.
Oh, my God.
So, anyways, that service sounds really cool and would be very useful. The private preview is happening among Intune customers, and also it says with the Microsoft Graph, which is kind of interesting. Not exactly sure what the connection is with that, but this is one of those hidden announcements from Ignite that I think could impact a lot of IT pros. So go to the tech community site, look for the IT Pro blog, and you'll see a whole bunch of posts about this and some videos as well.
Good. Cool. Somebody said it's Catus interruptus.
It is. Yeah.
Code name pick of the week.
Given we talked about Ledge/Dedge being dead, the old Edge, no longer getting any security updates, thought it would be fun to make the codename pick the legacy version of Edge. People may remember the codename was Spartan for that.
Oh, right. That's right.
And there's a very funny tweet from Sean Lindersey. I believe that's how you say his name, who's on the Edge team, who showed a custom-built chainsaw-carved statue for the Project Spartan team. And he said, my contribution were the slings and arrows. And if you remember, the old Edge wasn't well received by customers, really. There were some incompatibility issues and such, and that's why they went to the new Edge that's based on Chromium. But there's a funny statue, which it looks like it really is in the Microsoft Office, of a Spartan holding a sword and fending off some arrows with a shield.
Oh, that's okay. When you said I'm looking at the picture. I pictured like a child's carving, but this is actually
like a real carving.
Fully articulated Greek warrior of some kind.
It is. It is.
Here, wow. Let me pull up the Twitter. Oh, wow.
There it is. Right.
That's made out of, it looks like he's made out of wood. This is a very Seattle, Pacific Northwest kind of a wood sculpture done with a chainsaw and chisel. Wow. As
one does, right?
Yeah. Project Spartan. Arrows were my contribution to the design, says Sean Linderzay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy moly.
I know.
It looks like the legs articulate, too, which is pretty cool. I guess he could just walk on out of there. I don't know. Wow. Nice.
Yeah, the code name for the new Edge, Anaheim, just not as fun as Spartan.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
And kids, if you want to go visit it, it's in building 113 on the Microsoft campus.
What's the Anaheim is what, like Knoxbury Farm or something? What's in Anaheim?
Anaheim is a pepper, but it's also a city in California. I'm guessing they're going after the pepper myself.
Oh.
Didn't we was there a Microsoft event out in Anaheim one year?
There was.
Oh, well, maybe. That's also where Disneyland
was. It probably
Anaheim
a
Convention
pre-Ignite?
Center.
Yeah.
Like a tech
across from Disneyland.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
isn't that where they launched IE 8 or Windows 8 or like?
Oh, maybe.
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Apparently, even though this statue is in Building 113, they've replaced the Spartan's sword with a plant.
Jeez. So a little girl walked up with a tulip.
He has a sword. He has a sword. I am Sparta. Let's. This is the best beer name ever, I think. Our beer pick of the week,
crazy.
Mary Jo Foley.
The beer pick of the week is Prickly Whiskers.
Very appropriate.
Has nothing to do with Sriracha.
But what's the name of the company?
Fifth Hammer is the company.
I read that as Filth Hammer.
Good old Filth Hammer.
I'm sure it
Fifth
means
Hammer
something.
is an excellent brewery. Oh, yeah. There's a long story about Fifth Hammer's name. I'm forgetting it right now. But the reason I picked this beer company and beer is because March is Women's History Month, and March 8th was International Women's Day. So finding craft beer breweries owned by women or even partially owned by women is a little bit challenging. But this one, Fifth Hammer in Long Island City, New York, is co-owned by Mary Izzet. And I've met her. She's awesome. So they make a lot of really cool beers with very unusual ingredients. This one, Prickly Whiskers, is a sour beer made with the fruit of the Opuntia, Opuntia, which is a cousin of the prickly pear.
Ooh.
Huh.
So when you pour the beer, it comes out neon red, like super, super red, and it tastes like the color, watermelon, raspberry. It's a very nice sour. And, spring is coming, so why not start drinking sours? That's what I say. Anyway, Fifth Hammer, Prickly Whiskers. And if you ever get to travel again to New York City, you definitely should check out their brewery. It has a really awesome tap room that's accessible.
Is this in Brooklyn?
Yep. Queens.
Long Island City.
Long Island City, Queens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Very nice.
Very good. Yep.
Prickly Whiskers. That's a good name for a cat.
It is.
It sounds like a T.S. Eliot name.
Filth Hammer is a good name for a goth band.
Filth Hammer.
Next up, Filth Hammer.
Filth Hammer.
Be a lot of yelling.
Folks, we've run the gamut from beer to cats, and everything in between. That's it for this edition of Windows Weekly. You can find Paul Thurrott at thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His book, The Field Guide to Windows 10. I think more books coming anyway, available at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley's at allaboutmicrosoft.com, her ZDNet blog. And, of course, they gather every Wednesday around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That will be 1800 UTC because we're springing forward on Sunday. So,
oh no, is that Sunday?
Yes.
Yes.
I know
I
it's
was
snuck
just
up
enjoying
on
the
me.
light in the morning.
Yeah, you'll get less light in the morning, but more light at night.
Right.
It's just a way of screwing with people, frankly.
Pretty much.
There's no rationale.
Hey, if you weren't sleeping bad enough during the pandemic, guess what's happening Sunday?
Let's just screw with people and change the time for no reason.
Mary Jo, did you switch to an XPS 13 over there? What's going on with the camera?
The camera won't reconnect now. Yeah. I'm like, the camera won't reconnect. Thanks, Sriracha. You devil.
Actually, this is a better picture. I hate to say it. I honestly think this is a better picture. It's not as
Is it really?
Yeah, it's hurting from the low light. If you had more light, it'd be better. But,
yeah.
I like her looking down at me. Actually, it's.
I actually think this is a nice image you're getting from the Dell. Yeah. If
No, this is from the HP.
The new HP.
One that's AMD.
It's an Elite.
Yeah. It's nice. It looks good. Frankly,
it's a nice built-in camera.
If we compare it to Paul's, I'm just saying.
But I can't help what I look like.
So anyway, we'll be at 1700 UTC. The UTC doesn't move, but we do. We're going forward, so you'll have to tune in. If we go forward and you don't,
you won't be tuning in.
You have to tune in an hour later.
That means the show's an hour less long?
I don't know.
No, wait.
It's like they're just doing this to mess with us. I swear to God. You know what? Screw trying to watch it live. Just download it
Listen,
from
if you're in Europe,
twit.tv.
you're smart. You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. twit.tv/WW. You can also get it on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel, and probably the best thing to do, find it in your podcast application. Subscribe, and then you get it automatically. You don't have to worry about daylight saving time or any of that nonsense. And if you do use a podcast app and there's a directory, please rate and review. Tell the world what a great show they're missing, not listening to Windows Weekly. Paul, Mary Jo, we'll have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on Twit TV. Each and every week, Thursday, that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.